It's Sunday Funday. We're gonna do that. We're gonna have some fun with it. Get excited. Okay. And some not so fun. Obviously, we'll do some news coverage as well. Trump wins Arizona. SNL Sunday with Bill Burr. One reacts. Okay. Waking up to the death of neoliberalism. Light coverage equals 5 hours. Yeah, well, I've been doing 10 hours of full straight coverage. Bill Burr was a letdown. That's what I've heard. Looking at my Newsweek article plus WAPO hit it in now. Black Ops campaign when? Dude, you know I used to always play the Black Ops campaign, but like lately I feel like it's been kind of ass, no? Like it didn't even, I didn't even hear about what the campaign looked like. Hasan, people are still doing Hasan. No, don't ban them. I'm unbanning them. Anyway, does anyone have a blast off meme or what? Big fan of his podcast a couple years ago, but ever since Paper Tiger, everything I've seen on this has been I don't know what you are talking about. What is this? Bro sent me a Blue Sky link. That's crazy. I didn't even know it was like that. I didn't know we've officially hit that. Like, are we ready for that? Are we ready for fucking Blue Sky links in the chat? Like, what's going on? I don't know if I'm mentally, physically ready for such a thing. Okay. All right. Oliver, fuck it. I'm using your goddamn blast off for once. Finally, I'm using that. I don't have too much going on the other hand, so I'm just going to use it. Play Kamala Quest? What the hell is Kamala Quest? Blue Sky is so much better. No, it's not. Blue Sky is like fucking Tumblr, dude. What the fuck is Blue Sky? Blue Sky is like woke Twitter, but like, because it's all rad libs, you can't really make fun. Like, Blue Sky is fun. Blue Sky would be fun if you just like kind of looked at it as like Tumblr and made fun of it. But it's basically lib Twitter, but everyone's a lib. So it's all just like rad libs talking about, like, it's all rad libs engaging in like sectarial infighting, sectarial violence, over minor disagreements, even though everyone is basically voting Democratic Party, straight ticket. It's that type of shit. It's liberal truth social. Yeah, it is. It is liberal truth social. That's a great way to look at it. And I think to me that represents the dynamic and like the asymmetry of what people care about on the liberal end versus the Republican end. On like Republican, on Truth Social, they're like, you know, I don't know what they're fantasizing about. Like, yeah, that's right. Donald Trump is actually the sexiest man, and Americans have been, you know, mainstream liberal media is running a psyop to make us not acknowledge how hot he is, right? Whereas like on lib Twitter, they're like, on Truth Social, they're like, you know, talking about how like furries should be a protected class, and if you don't acknowledge it as such, you're actually being incredibly like zoophobic or whatever. Like, I don't fucking know. It's just like the memes that someone like Asmongold would assume everyone on the left is like. Literally no one has said that. I'm just making shit up. I don't know. Hassan loves sitting on a dead site. What the fuck are you actually talking about, Lamau? No, this site is dead. It is. But I'm fighting till the last moment, you know? How Elon Musk broke Twitter and helped elect Donald Trump. Yeah, I will be watching this. I heard this is kind of a banger. A game you might enjoy to play on stream or off is Suzerain. You can play as the one president of the country and have many choices in policy and direction you want to move. You got to read LeBron's latest tweet. Is he white girl posting again? Just woke up from having a dream. I was playing for Duke for Coach K inside Cameron Indoor Stadium. It was insane in there. Told Coach K it was an honor to suit up for him, and he said the same thing back to me. He's such a legend. Then it turned right into a concert. Snoop and Dre were the performers, and they was doing the song the next episode. The roof inside Cameron damn near came off, haha. Then my alarm clock went off, and I woke up. Bro's lying? No, he's not. This is not a lie. It's just so fucking embarrassing that he posts like this, but I think this is precisely the reason why he's the GOAT. That's my GOAT, dude. He's so fucking silly. He's so silly with it. It's like cute. You know what I mean? He is a 6'9" behemoth who is 40 years old. And then he just like posts cute ass shit like this. How can you not love this stuff? You wake up and decided to lie unprovoked. Fuck this guy, dude. Yo, Twitter is infested with white supremacists. Okay, I hate that. Anyway, I like that he's still using Twitter like it's you know, a different era. You know what I mean? I like that he's using Twitter as though it's Twitter of like 2015. The only thing missing from this is hashtags. Okay, if he had hashtags on, what the fuck? This is haram. If he had hashtags on this shit, it would be perfect. It would be the perfect pose. What the fuck? What is this? This is the craziest post I've ever seen, dude. What the fuck? Trauma response. Yo, y'all are wilding out. Oh, I gotta repost that. That one is fire. Anyway. Trump, always my friends. Fuck Kamala Harris. He said, fuck Kamala Harris. First of all, who's Kamala Harris? Who's even Kamala Harris? Honestly, like, I've already forgotten. You know what I mean? Like, I'm telling you, this is, I think her political career is just, it's done, right? Like, I suspect that her political career is not going to continue from this point on. So like, it's one of those figures that like you can't really even shit on. Your gay fans were also popping off.
Y'all would stop calling me gay Hassan Piker, because it has broken my heart to learn that Hassan Piker is not gay Hassan Piker. That man is so fun.
That's funny.
I wish y'all would stop.
Yeah, this dude does look like me. What the hell? That's crazy. We said that about Killary. Yeah, ATL agrees with me, dude. This is like, it's over. Factually true, but needs context. According to the original artist, this spot on the wall is always used for temporary commissions, and it would have been removed no matter the results. The murals are meant to be only temporary advertisement, not last a lifetime. I just think that I think that like with Hillary Clinton, you can like keep complaining about Hillary Clinton because like she's at the very least, Hillary Clinton is at least like, you know, a very famous political figure that had a massive impact in the Democratic Party. Like the Clinton family had a ginormous impact, an outsized impact, dare I say, in the Democratic Party. Like there are coalitions, like she has Fedayeen within the Democratic Party, like Debbie Wasserman Schultz and people like that. Whereas like the party I would even break down as like the Obama party. Like there's an Obama coalition, the Pod Johns and the like, and then there is the Clinton heads, right? Whereas, and then there's like some Pelosi heads as well. Having said that, are no Kamala heads. You know what I mean? There is no like Kamala constituency in the party. As a matter of fact, she had to use Joe Biden's like remnants and pieces of the Clintonians within the Democratic Party and some pieces from the Obama consultant class. So that's probably part of the reason why she fucking lost. So, you know, that's something to consider. But wait, Pelosi heads? Yes. The Hakeem Jeffries is directly Nancy Pelosi's like successor. She groomed him for that position. Yes, there are definitely like Pelosi heads. I wouldn't say that there are like Pelosi heads in the consultant class, but I would say that she's like, she's made investments into Gavin Newsom. I mean, she's got California locked down pretty much. And besides California being locked down by her, she also has Hakeem Jeffries. Ohio voters reject issue 1, leaving politicians in control over map making process. So yeah, Kamala is a Pelosi disciple, to be honest. No, she's not. You want to know why? She 100% is not. Because if she was a full-blown Pelosi disciple, first of all, she would have significantly better political instincts, and Pelosi would have been in the tank for her from the start. Pelosi literally wanted an open primary. So no, she was not. Yeah, Pelosi did not want Kamala Harris. Don't ever let anybody rewrite history. She did not want Kamala Harris. She thought Kamala Harris was a profoundly weak candidate for understandable reasons. She was. And it's not because she's a black woman, for the record. That is not the reason at all. Before we, you know, let's just fucking shut that shit down instantly, because I think that's like unnecessarily a like weird thing to say over and over again, which then creates that the idea that the only way that you can win elections is if you run a white man, and I don't agree with that. Okay. Any chance Sotomayor resigns and lets Biden replace before the end of his term? I just saw a fucking post about this. She's not retiring. Justice Sonia Sotomayor has no plans to retire, resisting liberal calls to quit ahead of the Trump presidency. She's not. But the problem with Sotomayor retiring now would be that, like, the Republicans would probably not let it happen anyway. The Economist agreed with you about this in their article today. What? Is it because it's in Spain and you don't really focus on European news? I don't get it. Please talk about Valencia and the protests. We need more people to talk about it. We need pressure to kick off Majon. Like, even if you don't want to talk about it today or something because you already have planned what you're going to talk about today, do you think you can maybe do it another day? Sure, we can look at the Valencia stuff. It's just like, I feel bad because I know it's like a devastating flood that took place. And there's been a lot of controversy. There's been a lot of protests happening. It's just that, like, you know, the American presidential race was happening. You know what I mean? Hearing you on the media was wild. Wait, what is on the media? Hearing you on the media was wild. Was that CBC? I'm going to do another hit with the Canadian broadcasters, I think next week as well. Oh yeah, FEMA, apparently there was like a FEMA controversy as well. I forgot. What is on the media? I was on the media. I did not see that. Send it to me. But yeah, let's get started with this. Hassan Piker on Kamala Harris's loss. You can't podcast your way out of this. A lot of these guys are right adjacent, maybe. They organically found themselves in this space. And I think the Republican Party took advantage of that very well. That same ecosystem doesn't exist on the left. It's not necessarily flooding the market with like a bunch of liberals. Like, oh, if we had like 8 more Pod Save Americas that kind of look like me, for example, like more bro-y, right? Then that would be fine. It's like, no, you can't podcast your way out of this problem. There was a list that looked at who had the top like election night coverage, who had the most views. And that list was populated exclusively by right-wingers except for me. So I'm out there. I'm here. But obviously, I'm not directly aligned with the top of the ticket or with many of the establishment Democrats and their attitude towards consistently and stubbornly defending third-way neoliberalism. There is a divide here that does not exist within the Republican base of support that will develop a relatively conservative audience. So I think this is an issue that has to be solved top down. I think first, it's not about like 10 more podcasters or 20 more liberal podcasters. I think it's more so about the Democratic Party looking within and doing the correct autopsy after this 2016 style defeat. I think not addressing the economic hardships that people were experiencing with direct policy prescriptions in a way that separated yourself from Joe Biden was probably the #1 problem. Aiden Ross. Democrats have been doing some deep soul searching and plenty of finger pointing in the wake of Vice President Kamala Harris's decisive election loss. Some liberals suggested the key takeaway from the 2024 elections is to build the left's version of Joe Rogan. There were several things that contributed to Donald Trump's massive victory among young men, but none were discussed with as much fury and fervor as his appearance on the podcast live streams hosted by Rogan, Theo Von, Aiden Ross, and the Nelk Boys. On the left, there's a fairness meter on this article, and it's pushed all the way to unfairly left-leaning. Yeah, I mean, I don't care. On the left, there's precisely one influencer who commands such large following. Hassan Piker, progressive Twitch streamer with 2.8 million followers, drew 313,413 viewers for his election night live stream. He was the 3rd most popular streamer and also the only non-conservative streamer to break into the top 10 live streams that night. So Piker knows a few things about existing in the so-called bro space. Unfortunately for Harris and the Democrats, you can't podcast your way out of this problem, Piker told Newsweek on Friday. The 33-year-old influencer said it would do the Democratic Party little good to just flood the podcast market with 8 other versions of the popular Pod Save America show, a liberal political podcast hosted by a crew of former Obama aides. That's not the problem, said Piker, who would be somewhat to the left of the Pod Save boys. People like me exist. I have one of the largest election night coverages out there. The real issue is that the Democrats are up against the ideological divide between its base and the rest of the party. For Piker, the aphorism that Republicans fear their base and Democrats hate their base has never rung more true. Republicans can get away with taking advantage of that space, he said, emphasizing that there are billionaire GOP mega donors who share the same interests as right-leaning influencers, which leads to cross-pollination. But that same ecosystem doesn't exist on the left. It barely exists for Pod Save America. CNN and MSNBC barely even cross-pollinate, Piker continued. The liberal and I guess progressive outlets have completely shut off the independent media from entering their sphere of influence. And besides that, there is a deep ideological divide. For months, Piker has warned Harris's campaign that its failure to represent the voters who would cast more ballots for the Democratic nominee would lead to its collapse. He stressed that the Democrats need to move more to the left and stop trying to court moderate Republicans and center-right voters who proved again on Tuesday that they would not budge for Harris. Exit polls show that 94% of Republicans still voted for Trump, while independents only broke for Harris by 3%. In 2020, Joe Biden won independents by a whopping 13%. The Democratic Party has actively chastised and pushed aside a lot of people that would normally vote for them, and they continuously had done this cycle after cycle, Piker said. And in the end, the bottom fell out. It wasn't just a large swath of young men who moved to the right. This year, Trump won 1/5 of black men, nearly half of Latino men, doubling his standing among the first group and moving Hispanic majority counties on average 10 percentage points to the right. In Dearborn, Michigan, the majority Arab community that helped Biden win in 2020, Trump won 42% of the vote to Harris's 36%. And none of it should have been a surprise, according to Piker. He argued that by sending pro-Israel Democrats like Representative Richard Torres and former President Bill Clinton in Michigan, Harris' campaign openly communicated that they did not want anyone who cared about Palestine to go out and vote for them. They actively pushed aside these people with the hope that they could win the suburbs over, win these conservative voters over, and it was a failure. The biggest mistake that Harris made, in Piker's view, was not addressing voters' concerns about the economy with direct policy proposals that separated her from Biden. For the entirety of Harris's campaign, poll after poll showed that the economy was a major voting issue for the nation. Exit polls showed that deep discontent with the Biden administration's handling of the economy ultimately drove Americans to Trump. National exit polls revealed that 45% of people said they've gotten worse off under the current administration, making it the highest percent of the electorate to ever say as much, even higher than 42% who agreed with that sentiment in 2008, in the throes of global financial meltdown that was cratering the economy. I'm Dylan on this. What is this? Yeah, we'll look at this in a second. VOD watcher, first time chatter. Will VODs ever be free to watch again, or is this permanent? For the time being, if you want to watch the VODs, you have to subscribe. And I apologize for those who have not in the past. But, you're discussed at 2770 on 2742. You know what's really funny? Me and Ezra Klein were supposed to do a entire synopsis of the manosphere, brosphere, and I think with his producers, like a 1.5 hour conversation ahead of time. And it would have been such a prescient podcast if we had actually done that. Like if we actually followed through on that. I think on the New York Times, this was a while ago and we were supposed to do it, but then I was also talking about at the same time, this was right before Kamala Harris was swapped in. And I literally was also on that train as well. And also Tim on where we are with re-education camps. What? Okay, we'll look at both of those. But okay, 2740, you said that's when they talk about me. That's crazy. Well, I'll play this in a little bit. I wish we had done that. I wish we had done that convo. Because I think that would have been really good for both of us, overall, a really good assessment way ahead of time. Maybe it could have even reached out to some people that would have benefited from hearing this ahead of time, you know? But yeah, let's keep going. Piker said if the Democratic Party wants to recapture the attention of the voters they won in 2020, they have to abandon what he calls the vibe session narrative, where campaigns chalk up economic anxieties of the fact that Americans don't understand the issue, and that eventually they'll feel it when their wages catch up to inflation. Most Americans do not care about civility. They do not care about these institutions. They do not have an ideological fear. They just want to stop the hurt, Piker said. If Kamala Harris would have come out and been like, I'm literally going to jail the Walton family, people have been like, okay, as long as you're promising that that's going to drop the prices of groceries, I don't give a shit. They're on board with 20 million immigrants being deported because that's what Trump is saying. I'm going to deport 20 million immigrants and it's going to lower everything. It's going to be the solution to the housing crisis, he said. It's an insane thing to say. It's genuinely Hitlerian, but people are like, okay, well, I guess it's going to work. Who knows? We'll see. And they take a shot in the dark. You can't actively act like things are perfect. Things are perfectly fine when things have not been fine for Americans for quite some time. Asked about early data that shows more than 90% of counties shifting for Donald Trump, suggesting that Democrats' late pivot towards moderation may not have been the problem, Piker isn't convinced that it's because Americans love Republican policies. He believes a Democratic candidate who can deliver Senator Bernie Sanders' economic populist message earnestly could yield enormous results in a general election. He argues that there are many low and mid-propensity voters who don't always show up in the primaries, but could catapult the Democratic Party to major success if activated, much as the GOP has experienced its version on the right. Piker used Missouri as an example. A deep red state, Missouri went to Trump with over 58% support and reelected Senator Josh Hawley, a populist Republican, with more than 55% support. And yet, the state voted in favor of 2 progressive ballot measures. On Tuesday, Missouri voted not only to create a constitutional right to abortion, but also to raise minimum wage and require paid sick leave. And again, Piker said it was Harris's loyalty to Biden that prevented her from tapping into the politics at play. Liberal polities that are not attached to a Democratic politician are fantastic. They're so popular all around the Rust Belt, all around the Midwest, in the Sun Belt, everywhere. People like progressive politics and progressive policies. They don't like the Democratic Party, and they especially did not like Biden. They rejected Biden tremendously, and they also rejected Kamala Harris partially because she had a very short window of opportunity, and she used that short window of opportunity to rush towards Biden. This is off the fucking... I like that. I'm going to say fair. I broke the needle. So yeah, this is most of this was on video too. I wonder if they'll like release the full video. You were about to explain why the Ezra thing didn't happen. Yeah, so Ezra Klein and I were supposed to have a conversation about the manosphere, about like right-wing podcasts and how they dominate, how they flood the market, and what kind of like impact this has on public collective consciousness, especially for young men who feel like you know, they're not really associating themselves with any sort of like political movement whatsoever. And the reason why we never actually did it was because even after I did like a whole thing with his producers, gave him information on background, you know, just to like point them in certain directions of research, we never ended up doing the podcast because Kamala Harris became the candidate. So then obviously like everyone focused their attention on that, and we kind of dropped the ball on this. But luckily I was still able to have a conversation like this with the Pod Johns ahead of time. So there was at least like somewhere on the record where liberals will hear what I have to say, because they're not fucking tuning into my broadcast. The moment that they hear me criticize Kamala Harris, they were like, oh, this guy sucks. You know, oh, this guy's a hater. He wants Kamala to lose. He's a fucking radical, blah, blah, blah. Like, or even if they're like, I kind of like Hasan, but I really don't agree with him. And I personally don't want to hear him shit on the Democrats because I want to feel good. And that's an understandable desire for people to have, right? I get it. I get it. You want a hug box. You want someone to tell you that things are going to be good. The problem is sometimes you need the hard to swallow pills, right? Sometimes you need to hear the hard to swallow pills, because that way you won't be left in the dark. Many members of my community, regardless of voting for Kamala Harris, okay, were, due to my coverage on the issue, very aware of the real risks that were at play, very aware of the likelihood that Donald Trump could win the election, very aware of the likelihood, which I said was going to happen, where potentially Donald Trump could win the popular vote and lose the Electoral College, which did not happen. And that specifically did not happen because of Kamala Harris's incredibly bad campaigning in the blue wall, where it demonstrably did not resonate. The message that she kept pumping, which is another thing that I kept reiterating over and over again. We are not seeing a dramatic shift in the polls. If you're dumping $30 million into TV ads in key districts and it's not swinging in the polls in your favor, that means the ad spend is being burnt. That means that the message is not resonating. You have the bullets, you have the gun, you have the capacity to fire it, but the bullets are duds, okay? The message, if the message is bad, then it's not resonating. That's it. And you got to retriangulate. Something is obviously not working. And they burned through $1 billion. Not only did they burn through $1 billion, but they also seemingly lost $30 extra million in the process as well. They're $30 million in the tank by the end of the cycle. I was crashing out to my liberal friends after the incident on election night. They were like, oh shit, you were kind of right, all thanks to your coverage. Yes. A key component of being a leftist is being seen as unserious for being correct too quickly. Yes. It is very interesting to see. It is very interesting to see and hear like how different the reality is for many Americans that I guess were seemingly reading very partisan news that presented a false narrative of Kamala Harris absolutely destroying absolutely running the best possible campaign. And they have consistently tried to play defense for their own coverage. They've consistently tried to play defense for their consultants that did the wrong things. Do you have any different opinions about the polls after this election, since it seems 98.9 were wrong? Wait, what? No, the polls were not wrong at all. The polls were what? No, the polling was actually very solid. The polling was so solid. If anything, I was wrong for thinking that the pollsters readjustment, Trump bump, which even the likes of Nate Cohn talked about, was not even there. It was just correct. If anything, they still underestimated Donald Trump to a certain degree. But yeah, no, the polls were incredibly correct. It was within the margin of error, or completely correct in many instances. The polls were correct. It was more so the assessment of the polls that was incorrect, with the exception of the Seltzer poll that was like dramatically bad, right? Which gave people a lot of hopium in the direction of the Harris party, in the direction of the Democratic Party. Most polls were right on the fucking money. So yeah, let's hear. I didn't even know I was on the media.
Solutions to that, but owning
Piker, a Twitch streamer and political.
People loved you on The Apprentice. They were going to love you as a president.
I figured it would be so easy. You know, it's
well,
very
it probably
interesting.
would have been if the media didn't attack you the way they did. If they didn't conflate you with Hitler. I mean, even today, like Kamala was talking about you and Hitler. They're going to take what you said about Robert E.
We'll
Lee.
never know whether Rogan.
You know what's really annoying about this? Comparing Donald Trump to Hitler is not only correct, but it wouldn't even be bad strategy in terms of like communicating to the American public that he is the second coming of Adolf Hitler. The issue, on the other hand, is that you can't say he's Hitler and then simultaneously say, but I want Hitler's party members in my cabinet. You can't say that he's Adolf Hitler and then say, I want to build Adolf Hitler's border wall. Okay? You can't say he's Adolf Hitler and then keep saying, and Hitler has some good ideas. Because voters will obviously look at that and go, what the fuck? You're saying he's Hitler, but you want to be Hitler? But why would I vote for you? That is the issue. That inconsistency is something that I regularly pointed out. And I agree that Donald Trump's policy is Hitlerian. Okay? And I was deeply frustrated that Kamala Harris and the Biden administration's policy on the border was conciliatory to the Adolf Hitler policies. And not only that, but one other aspect of the Hitlerian comparisons is that if the out-of-touch Democrats, right? Because that's the way people see the Democrats. They see them as like liberal elites. They're out of touch. They only care about like gay stuff or whatever, right? It's not correct, but that's just the way people see the Democrats, because the Democrats don't run on left economic populism, right? If the out of touch liberal elites that are only seemingly caring about gay shit from in the eyes of the public, which is not correct at all. The Democrats definitely don't care about gay shit either. Okay, trust me. And the only thing you see Donald Trump on, if you also don't really watch a lot of like regular news coverage, the only time you ever see Donald Trump is when he's being a fucking chill ass guy, you know, talking about doing cocaine with Theo Vaughn, or being a chill ass dude, you know, flipping fries at fucking Mickey D's. Then you're like, is this Hitler? Like, I feel like this doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay. That Theo Vaughn appearance broke me, dude. That's when I was like, oh, because the Aiden Ross one sucked and it didn't do a lot for him in terms of positive media coverage, in my opinion. But when I saw the Theo Vaughn interview, I was like, oh no. You remember, like, we literally watched it together on stream and I was like, oh my God, he is so personable in this. He is so human in this. He is so chill in this. This is not good. And it wasn't just Theo Vaughn. I think, like, you know, Impulsive, Theo Vaughn, the Andrew Schultz podcast, all these fucking podcasts back to back, Nelk Boys, all this shit, like, it fucking humanized him and made him look like a chill ass dude. Sometimes that seemingly chill ass dude is Adolf Hitler. Okay? Second coming. This is one of those times. Joe Rogan was the final, was the finishing touch on his, yeah, sure, I got some crazy policies, but I actually have, I actually recognize that the economy is shit, and I'm going to solve it by doing mass deportations and concentration camps at the border. You know? Are you planning on going on the Flagrant Pod? I hit up Andrew Schultz to go on the Flagrant Pod, but he said he has like another special that he's taping, so we can't do it until next year. Weren't you on it already once? Yeah, I was. Why would you work with Schultz? Why wouldn't I? Why the fuck would you go on there? Because I'm a right winger, baby. Because I'm a right winger, baby. That's right. Oh yeah, because I'm doing a fucking right wing pivot, dog. That's what it is. And certainly not good that I would, be reaching out to a broad audience of somewhat apolitical right wing people in a normal manner. Hey guys, I love that many of you talk about how, where is our Joe Rogan? Where is our Joe Rogan of the left? Where is our Joe Rogan of the left? And then your fucking worst annoying leftist instincts kick in like that. You literally will be like, we need a Joe Rogan of the left. And then he has to straight up never talk to a person that has even remotely triggered me. Okay. And I am triggered by everything. So trust me, you cannot go on a single other podcast. You have to literally sit here and only do this stream. You can only talk to Maoists. We get it. You're going on his podcast for money. Classic LA socialist move. Hell yeah, baby. I don't think the podcast made the difference, though. Relax. You really think the podcast made the difference, though? I mean, Biden really fucked up her chances of her campaign as well. Yes, no, Biden is like the top priority here for sure. I think Biden fucked his own chances up. Like, aside from being like old as shit, like one of the things that I said, even if I put my Democratic Party consultant hat on, one of the major L's, in my opinion, for the Democratic Party consistently has always been that they don't even fucking like openly communicate what they've done for the people. It's pathetic. It's stupid, right? It's so dumb. It's so fucking dumb. Why are you not consistently talking about all the fucking money that you're bringing to these different areas, okay? Opening up new manufacturing facilities, shit like that. Is so stupid. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to say like, no, the government does work sometimes, okay? Don't be afraid to use the bully pulpit to actually bully Republicans who are standing against progress and playing an obstructionist role and then turning around and lying when they go back to their town halls and saying like, oh, look at all the money I brought back here. You're fucking stupid. You're dumb. Every time you go on these podcasts, there's at least a dozen comments saying how chill you are, and I think that's worth it. And it's not like you go on there to agree with Schultz on his views. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
A lot of people have
Yeah, why would I go on a podcast that I've been on already?
credited you for Andrew Tate choosing to remove all of his content from social media. Really break that down.
He was on this other 17-year-old Fortnite stream because he was doing the rounds. He went to like
God, my hair is so ass.
Aiden Ross. He went to Click's stream. He's like,
Aiden Ross, I show speed. What the fuck? God, I looked like ass. I need to fucking do this again. And look, finally got a lesbian feminist on the pod. Nice. Y'all should have had Andrew Tate to make a surprise appearance. That would have been flagrant. 56 minutes in the pod. I'm waiting on Schultz to light the blunt instead of twirling it around like a white girl. Laha Akash goes so hard for Indians and knows nothing about being an Indian. Hassan is the exact opposite of flagrant. Yeah, a lot of people were inherently resistant to this podcast appearance, but many people were like, nah, you were chill as fuck, dude. Anyway, I have turned more people to the left, just recommending you for a non-politics video than anything else. Long hair is hot, man. No, I look like shit. The left needs more podcasts to influence to combat the Joe Rogans and the Andrew Tates of the world. This is why that won't work. Drop It is a very left-leaning company in both actions and policy. They supported the writer's strike and their crew is still masking on set. And they previously donated to help Palestinians. Recently had a guest star show, previously posted about the October 7th attack. And many years ago talked about his great-grandfather's involvement in Israeli colonialism. That's clearly not good and was a bad judgment call, but was arguably blown out of proportion by a loud minority of fans on Twitter and Tumblr. Yeah, there's also this issue too. I don't know what Dropout is, but like, there's also the issue of like people very clearly on like the left does have a tendency to fucking eat itself, even though we have no fucking power whatsoever. Which is why I never let that shit happen. You know, that's why I think that's one thing that I That's one thing that a lot of people present me as like a humorless scold. But it's ironic that like I spend a good deal of time culling this fucking community when they behave like humorless scolds, right? Like there's a reason. It's just gross. It's not a good way to put your best foot forward. Like if you're trying to present a fun narrative, a fun message, if you're trying to get people on board, if you're trying to build like a coalition and you know, say a whole bunch of like annoying things, you're like, well, this, like, I'm not going to examine where this person is coming from, what their worldview is, and how they arrived at this conclusion. And I'm going to assume that every single person with a different perspective than myself is like intrinsically evil, ontologically evil even. Then yeah, you're not a serious person. You're never going to be able to fucking reach a broad audience. It's just not going to happen, which is hilarious because like I literally don't do that. And yet all my fucking naysayers constantly say I do that all the time. I think it's comical how the left are blaming Elon Musk and X for losing as if they don't control Facebook, Instagram, and any other social media platform. Brother, there is not a single, what are you talking about? Mark Zuckerberg literally openly said he likes Trump. Mark Zuckerberg has one of the most censorious fucking platforms out there. So much so that the Human Rights Watch directly called him out for consistently fucking banning left-wing voices for being pro-Palestine. So much so that it became an issue, okay? Mark Zuckerberg is openly right-wing. And not only that, but have you seen Facebook? You think Facebook is leftist? Are you fucking stupid? Go ask your grandmother what platform she frequents the most. And I doubt she is a die-in-the-wool socialist. Oh, you're saying that the right controls Facebook, Instagram, and every other social media platform. Is that what you're saying? Like, are we in agreement? Because Facebook, Instagram, like Meta is entirely captured and has always been very right wing. They straight up cry bullied. They straight up cry bullied themselves. I remember this because this was a big deal. This was a big ordeal. This was a big debate. Okay, way back in the day in like 2016 era, and I remember talking about this consistently on panels that I was a part of, where I would say like, guys, what are you talking about? The Heritage Foundation runs Facebook's moderation. If you look at the largest voices on Facebook, if you look at the largest voices on Instagram, the overwhelming majority of them are still very much far right. Like Ben Shapiro's been dominating Facebook while calling Facebook a woke liberal shithole for years and years. They did numerous congressional hearings on this to bully every fucking tech CEO to make sure that their shit got priority. And all of these tech CEOs, after being bullied by Congress, gave that to them. Facebook is the reason why so many of your grandparents and so many of your parents believe in QAnon conspiracies. And you're over here being like, Facebook is so left wing. Yeah, dude, you're right. And Bongino does LeBron numbers on Facebook. Yeah. Yeah, billionaire owned social media platforms are left. This is a hilarious fucking take. Maybe you could say that for TikTok, but TikTok has right wing radicalization. It has left wing radicalization. They just have no moderation whatsoever. It's crazy. I don't think I've seen more out in the open racism than Facebook. Yeah. Here. My mom's boyfriend is liberal and he watches Ben Shapiro on Facebook. It's insane, lol. That's hilarious. All right, let's hear what the on the media had to say about me.
His endorsement moved the needle on Tuesday, whether Kamala Harris's appearance would have made any difference. But all the spilled ink about it this week says a lot about where it feels like political influence is headed.
I hope that this is the last Democratic nominee who says no to Joe Rogan. Like, even if you have to go to the studio.
I would go further than that, Ryan.
Yeah.
You need your own Joe Rogan is the bigger point. That's the bigger problem.
One of the closest analogs to a left-wing Joe Rogan is 33-year-old Hassan Piker, a Twitch streamer and political commentator. He's big and burly, fluent in memes and gaming culture. He gets the internet. But as a socialist, he's likely seen as too radical to be embraced by mainstream Democrats in the way that Republicans have harnessed their right-wing influencers.
Yeah, the difference is their right-wing influencers, some of which are radical, are directly inside of the party, right? Because the Republican Party is not at odds with like Matt Walsh, right? They will go on his show regardless of how insane he might be. I mean, Donald Trump went on Alex Jones in 2016, guys. Never forget that, okay? I certainly didn't. He went on Alex Jones. If there is an opportunity where he will draw turnout, if there is a vein he can tap, he will tap it, okay?
I watched Hassan Piker deliver the results on election night with some 200,000 concurrent viewers. As the news began to set in, he started raging against Trump supporters who joined his chat to rub in the loss.
Donald Trump winning the presidency is not going to improve your life. It's actually going to continue making it worse because there are major material issues that you are experiencing, and neither party is actually providing any adequate solutions to that. But owning the libs is not going to improve your life. It is a way for Donald Trump and the Republican Party to distract you away as they pick your pockets and rob you blind.
For years now, he's been sounding the alarm on the rise of the manosphere.
There is a massive amount of right-wing radicalization that has been occurring, especially in younger male spaces.
Here he is speaking on Jon Favreau's podcast, Offline.
If you're a dude under the age of 30 and you have any hobbies whatsoever, whether it's playing video games, whether it's working out, whether it's, I don't know, listening to like a history podcast or whatever, every single facet of that is just completely dominated by right-wing politics.
As he watched Dana White shout out the podcast bros during that victory speech we heard at the beginning of this piece,
Ross, Theo Vaughn,
Hassan Piker reacted on his live stream.
the mighty and powerful Joe Rogan. No! And thank you, America. Thank you. Have a good night.
What is this country? What? We're done.
The news monoculture of old is dead. It seems that to many, the New York Times, a company that employs 2,700 journalists, is just one source of information and perspective. Joe Rogan, another. The incoming administration has shown us that it will lean on a new generation of personalities and media networks to spread its lies and shape hearts and minds. Here at OTM, we'll do our best to keep up.
Damn, let's go. That's pretty good. Not gonna lie, you did inspire me to go work out and join up with the DSA North Jersey chapter. Hell yeah. Damn, those hogs really had you worked up, huh? You were really raging hard. Yeah, that was my most quiet rage, and I'm really glad that they showed that and not me just like telling chatters that they're inevitably going to, you know, do the deed. A crazy right wing shut-in uncle who has his guys he listens to daily, like Alex Jones. When I try to explain what you do, she's a hyper lib, just assumes you're a guy on the extreme other side without giving it a chance. Crossing that bridge is going to be hard. I mean, yeah. You would disagree with the replacing the New York Times show? Those people are needed? Yes. Yes. In the upcoming weeks, I will probably feature more journalists from these legacy publishers and establishment media that I really like and whose works I rely on, because I think that there are still a lot of important voices out there. I mean, there's never been a moment where I haven't done that, right? Obviously, like you guys probably saw, I had Estad Herndon on, and it was a remarkable conversation. It's something that we've done over and over again throughout this campaign as well. Estad and myself, we've talked quite a bit about the many issues with the Harris camp. And I think that he has a very different perspective on what's going on or what the issues are than like the average DC bubble person, because he's constantly out there, right? Can you get Jamel Bowie? I have had Jamel Bowie on this stream before, way back in the day. You should do a concert in which you lip sync AI covers to yourself. Yeah, okay. I have always maintained the position that like they New York Times, Washington Post, mainstream media is an absolute necessity. Okay. I trust, while still upholding a high standard for their coverage, I still trust mainstream sources. Okay. Hank Green did a very cool video ranking bad and good takes from people in the aftermath of the election. Did he give me one? Did I get ranked in this? I think the left, especially the Democrat liberals, need to internalize that intentionally lying is an incredibly useful and good political strategy. I mean, that's like giving up at that point. Like, we're basically giving up. We're like, come on, just please lie. Like, at least, please. But you don't even have to do that. It would be better if you were honest, as a matter of fact, if you didn't lie. You know, if you were honest about these policies that you cared about, and then you know, personally advocated for these policies that you actually care about, it would be nicer. Anyway, too bad the left is held to an infinitely higher standard than their right. It wouldn't work. Yes, it would. You just have to have charisma and be a little bit shameless. It would work. The problem is you have to be a populist, okay? And you have to also have that dog in you, okay? Bernie clearly did not have that dog in him. It was one of my major criticisms of Bernie Sanders, that he was far too conciliatory to power, and he would not fight back. He would not bite back, right? It was frustrating. He had good policies. He was, people loved him. People saw him as earnest, and he still, and they still read him as honest, right? Could have sworn you suggested the Dems also lie as a strat before. Yeah, I think that at that point, it's like we've given up, though. Like, we've given up so hard that we're just like, at least lie about the fucking policies you're not even going to advance is like crazy. Anyway, I saw this take and I find it very interesting. Chris Murphy, Mr. We couldn't do a coup in Venezuela because Trump fucked it up, said that was a cataclysm. Electoral map wipeout. Senate depractical. Ceiling is now 52 seats. Ours is 62. Time to rebuild the left. We are out of touch with the crisis of meaning / purpose fueling MAGA. We refuse to pick big fights. Our tent is too small. Some early thoughts. Oh my God, what a stupid way to thread this. God damn, this motherfucker can't even write a thread right. Ay. Okay. All right. What is... Ken said, wow, the Democratic senator says a quiet part out loud and admits why the party is terrified of populism. Yeah. We don't listen enough. We tell people what's good for them. And when progressives like Bernie aggressively go after the elites that hold people down, why... they are shunned as dangerous populists. Why? Because true economic populism is bad for our high income base. There you go. He admitted it. I am beginning to respect Chris Murphy again for being outwardly honest for some reason. He is always so honest. I don't know why. Like when he said, we wanted to do a coup and Donald Trump fucked it up. Chris Murphy, Mr. We tried to do a soft coup in Venezuela and Donald Trump wouldn't let us do it. Remember when he fucking openly tweeted that out? And I was like, why would you say that out loud? What is wrong with you? Strange guy. Yeah, you get back there. Please. Asmin Clip Channel cutting Hassan conspiracy content. What is this?
So, yeah. If it doesn't get shut down, I will make sure that everybody hears
this
about
has nothing to do with me. This has something to do with...
After slavery.
This has something to do with... what do you call it? Wait, it does have something to do with me.
Recently suspended after this.
Wait, this has nothing to do with me. What do you mean Hassan conspiracy content? He's just going after Shonda Black, going after Michael from Pennsylvania, and demanding that they get banned or something. I don't know. They should be banned even further than they have been. Anyway, let's read the freaking... yeah, this is the tweet. Then it got real embarrassing. In April 2019, we tried to organize a kind of coup, but it became a debacle. Everyone who told us they'd rally to Guaido got cold feet, and the plan failed publicly and spectacularly, making America look foolish and weak. Why would you say that out loud, man? Like, this guy is too honest, brother. I don't know. For better or for worse, my man is just like, we tried to do a coup. That's crazy.
There's going to be courses in the camps, in the re-education camp. Roseanne will be teaching a course. It will be exciting for many of you. Many of you, I understand, are upset, and I understand that. But imagine waking up in a camp and being taught a course by Roseanne or RFK or the Nelk Boys or Bryce Hall. You're going to be taught. You're going to learn. You're going to learn whether you like it or not. You will learn. You're going to learn. The milk that we have is poison. There's poison milk. And what we're going to do about the milk, we're going to have raw milk for the babies. I don't understand people resisting this. I do think, obviously, I'm kidding, kind of.
He's not kidding. That is what's going to happen. RFK is going to put you in a fucking detainment facility and engage in re-education until you agree that, all of the food that we're eating has like something that he just made up. What did I call it? Like microthalophaciolites or whatever. He's just going to come up with like new shit over and over again. He's going to be like, the eggs that you get from the local grocery store has microphallocytes. Everyone knows that the only egg you can have is going to be, you need to have crow eggs, like the crows that I am friends with.
Politics now, and the president.
Anyway, Biden is going to meet with Adolf Hitler.
Elect Trump at his next steps as he prepares for his second term in the White House. He's set to meet this week with President Biden. ABC's Mary Alice Parks is in Washington with more. Mary Alice, good morning to you.
Yeah, Janae, good morning. We're told that President-elect Trump has not begun conducting formal interviews yet. He did overnight make that rather unusual announcement about two people he said would definitely not be serving in his coming administration. Nikki Haley, who was his ambassador to the United Nations. Of course, she ran against him in the primary, but she did endorse him and offered to campaign on his behalf. And Mike Pompeo, Trump's former Secretary of State. Now, both of these Republicans were supporters of Ukraine and at times critical of Trump. Now, Pompeo spoke out about the classified documents that were found there at Mar-a-Lago. As for who could be in, a lot of questions around Tulsi Gabbard, the former Democrat who then became one of Trump's steadfast defenders, and Stephen Miller, one of Trump's senior advisors throughout the campaign and during his time there at the White House. Now, Miller, we know, has outlined specific ideas for how he would carry out a mass deportation plan. Looking ahead to next week, yes, President-elect Trump is now scheduled to meet with President Biden in the Oval Office there at the White House on Wednesday. Biden conceding the election results and promising to help Trump with a smooth transition, though, of course, Trump did not do the same 4 years ago. Whit.
All right, Mary Alice Parks, thank you so much. Let's bring in ABC's chief Washington correspondent, Jonathan Karl, who'll be hosting This Week later on this morning. John, great to see you as always. Obviously, a big week ahead for the incoming president after that historic election win. Already named a chief of staff. But what more are you learning about a potential Trump administration?
Look, first of all, Susie Wiles is one of those rare figures in Trump world that is pretty much respected by all sides. There's a lot of there's hope for some order with Susie Wiles, both taking the role as chief of staff, but also taking a key role in this transition. As for who is going to come in, there's a lot of push and pull from the various factions.
Have you seen the new Onion Wiz? They watching your stream, I think. Yeah, I'm tapped in with Onion boys. I already gave him props directly. They have a great team, man. They're great.
Within, Trump's kind of the MAGA universe, you've got those that want to go in a direction like, Tucker Carlson, kind of a far right, full remaking of the federal government, and those that want to make sure that Trump has a successful and maybe not as radical approach. There's big questions about whether or not this is going to be the unity that Trump has talked about, or that retribution campaign he talked about during the campaign.
What about Elon Musk, the world's richest man, poured more than $100 million of his own money into the super PAC, into the campaign? What could we see his role turning out to be in an administration?
Hey, look, I don't know if Elon Musk is literally going to be on the federal payroll. I mean, he doesn't need the money, first of all. But he is going to play a major role in this administration, whether it's on the outside or actually on the inside. The talk during the campaign was he would run this Department of Government Efficiency and find a way to. He talked about he can get $2 trillion out of the federal budget. By the way, I don't know how you do that without touching things like Social Security.
And he said it could be Medicare. Painful before some of the benefits.
Painful before things go out well. But it was so notable to me this week that he was actually on the phone call with President Zelensky. So that's not government efficiency. That's also taking a really critical foreign policy, national security direction. By the way, I heard that call from the Ukrainian side actually went very well. There's a lot of concerns about how much support Donald Trump will have for Ukraine, but people close to Zelensky's office have told me that call, from their perspective, went very well.
So let's talk about the Democrats now. Obviously, a devastating result for them. What do we expect to see in terms?
I can't begin to explain to you how unimaginably stupid it is to actually try and wipe out all income tax and then tune up, or I guess tune up the economy in a way where the taxable revenue comes from tariffs, which is like a broad sales tax, like almost like a flat tax. It is going to be some nutty. This is a new era of insane anarcho-capitalism that is upon us. Okay. Yeah, we're going Argentina mode. I don't even know what will happen in that process. And it's also crazy because it's not like the main tax dodging comes from income. Like, most of the wealthy people already shelter themselves through many different loopholes where the income taxes aren't actually harming the top earners anyway. The top earners already, like their effective tax rate is so minuscule in comparison to you, the average American, right? So instead of going in the opposite direction and trying to take back more of the taxable revenue from the highest earners, not by way of income taxes, because once again, there is a professional class, the upper middle class, even people like myself, right? Who I guess I'm in a unique predicament because like I am raw income, whereas like someone in my position would most likely immediately move to a place like Florida where there's no income tax to begin with, or Texas, and then also utilize like the existing tax shelters for someone like myself, but like doctors, lawyers, right? People like that, athletes, people like that, celebrities, Hollywood celebrities, shit like that. Those are the highest earners in this country that get raw income, okay? Instead of the people that work in finance, for example, that also have like pretty high income, but beyond their high income, they also will be paid in stocks, right? And the people that park their net worth in the stock market, like you can't touch them. They already have like a lower tax burden to begin with, in terms of like the percentage of their effective tax rate at the end of the year is significantly lower than the average American citizen. Okay? The average American citizen that does not have anything beyond like a 401k. So there are many different ways. There are many different ways where you could try and take, I guess like fill the coffers with the highest earners, like go after the highest earners, but that would require a tremendous amount of money from the IRS, like, because it's much harder. That would require some legislative changes, which will never happen. So turning around and basically wiping out all income tax across the board will be very helpful for a lot of the highest earners, right, in the short term. And it will make people in every tax bracket feel as though they are taking home more pay, right? Having said that, however, I don't know what kind of inflationary effect this will have. Okay. Son, can you please check your donation message and give me a response? Dude, just fucking write it in the chat. Just type it in the fucking chat. Ahmad literally said, just type your message in the chat. Yeah, like he's going to see it in the chat that fast. Just stop being annoying. I already saw it like fucking 10 minutes ago when you started chirping about it. Hi, Hassan. Are you going to cover the UAP hearings on the 13th? Please speak to that briefly. No. Okay? No. I'm not going to be covering the fucking UAP briefing. I read everything in the chat. Okay? Anyway. Baja blast my brains out. Thank you for the 10 gifted subs. Funny name. Once again, if you want to show support for the community or myself, you can subscribe for $6 or for free. That's right. With a Twitch Prime, you can subscribe for free and you'll have access to the VODs, among many other things. Stop giving a shit. You can also get gifted a sub if you are lucky, and that way you can also see the subs. You didn't read this shit, bum ass motherfucker. Shut up. Ghost Dog It. Thank you for the 5 gifted subs. I bet you won't read this appreciation post for all you do adverting a white cishet guy from falling into the red pill pipeline. Yeah. Was he seriously asking about fucking aliens? Yes, he was. Anyway, kisses your neck softly. Thank you for the 5. Eka Grande. Thank you for the 5. In a Rainbow 09. Thank you for the 5. Gifted. So let's get back to Chris Murphy. Today's Senate. Oh, no, this is the Venezuela one. This is a cataclysm. It was a wipeout. The left has never fully grappled with the wreckage of 50 years of neoliberalism, which has left legions of Americans adrift as local places are hollowed out, rapacious profit seeking cannibalizes the common good, and unchecked new technology separates and isolates us. The things that mattered are disappearing. We spent half as much time with friends as a generation ago. Hard work no longer guarantees economic mobility. Institutions like churches are delegitimized. What? Institutions like churches? Place-based identity evaporates as we all become global citizens. The left skips past the way people are feeling. Alone, impotent, overwhelmed, and straight into uninspiring solutions. More roads, bulk drug purchasing that do little to actually upset the status quo, who has power and who doesn't. The left, what? The left skips past the way people are feeling. Isolation and alienation is a key component of leftist messaging. It's one that I talk about quite frequently. So I don't know what he means by the left here. I think he just means liberals. Does racism explain part of the attraction of the right's nativism? Of course, but mass deportation is a terrible response to Americans' real sense that they're helpless in the face of global forces like increased migration. The left largely ignores this pain. We don't listen enough. We tell people what's good for them. And when progressives like Bernie aggressively go after the elites that hold people down, they are shunned as dangerous populists. Why? Maybe because true economic populism is bad for our high income base. That's exactly what it is. That's the admission. Okay? That right there is the admission, folks. He's fucking saying it. Oh my God, he admitted. That's it. They have a wealthy base that they care about more than they care about winning elections. They have a wealthy base. They care more about Israel than they do about winning Michigan. Like, that much is clear, okay? Democrats will look you dead ass in the face and go, I would much rather fucking kill this country. I would much rather allow a fascist, monstrous piece of shit like Donald Trump to win than to even marginally move in the direction of humanity in the way that we analyze our relationship with Israel. Okay? Timestamp. Rokana says Dems had a Gaza policy issue based on his conversation with progressives. Yeah, we'll do that in a second.
Did create space.
Yeah, he's talking about me. The conversation that he had with me, where I straight up told him to his face at the DNC that Israel was doing a genocide. And he was like, oh, I wouldn't, remember that? And he was like, oh, I wouldn't personally use that language. I think we have a disagreement there. I was like, no disagreement. I wonder if anyone has talked about this alienation thing from capitalism, maybe like a German Jewish political economist. I wonder, if there was a guy with some formative work, like very important work in this field. Yeah, probably not. Don't worry about it.
In terms of soul searching.
Oh, sorry. Before we get to the key figures, like let's finish off this Chris Murphy thing. Meanwhile, men tumble into different kinds of identity crises. The patriarchy, society's primary organizing paradigm for centuries, rightly crashes. The right pursues an alluring dial back. The left says get over it. Again, a refusal to listen / offer responsible solutions. No. The response to this from the left cannot simply be like, there's two different things here, okay? If you're just shooting the shit on the timeline and you say men are trash, that's one thing. But if you're running a fucking campaign, you can't say that, okay? Obviously. But one thing that you can do, you must do, in an effort to ensure that men are not primed for radicalization, is to try to solve some of these underlying material problems, this economic instability that they feel, so that they are not finding themselves in the throes of right-wing radicalization. If one party is not addressing the issues that everyone is experiencing, including but not limited to men, and the other party is looking at the anger and saying, you should channel your anger towards those who are weaker than you, those who have no fence, those who are defenseless overall, those that society has cast aside as undesirables, people are going to find that alluring, and especially so. We cannot be afraid of fights, especially with the economic elites who have profited off of neoliberalism. The right regularly picks fights with the elites, Hollywood, higher ed. Democrats, e.g. the Harris campaign, are tepid in our face with billionaires and corporations. Real economic populism should be our tent pole. But here's the thing. Then you need to let people into the tent who are 100% on board with us on social, cultural issue or issues like guns or climate. Those things are hard for the left. A firm break with neoliberalism. Listen to poor and rural people, men in crisis. Don't decide for them. Pick fights. Embrace populism. Build a big tent. Be less judgmental. But we are beyond small fixes. I don't necessarily disagree with like the broader point here. But here's Adam Johnson, who I do hold to high status here. I think his commentary is very sharp. And I do find myself agreeing with him quite frequently. I will say he has some skepticisms about Chris Murphy's take here. He says, yes, but we must be skeptical of what type of populism emerges from the ashes. If Chris GOP border Bill Murphy and the glowing New York Times Glusenkamp Perez profile are any guide, expected to be corporate-friendly, anti-migrant demagoguery, anti-trans, and shallow cultural head nodding. Yes. Be very aware of this type of pseudo-populism. It's what the consulting class and elite media jammed down our throats post-2010 and post-2016. It pays lip service to the poor while focusing on superficial cultural prostrations, migrant scapegoating, and LGBTQ abandonment. Ken, on the other hand, says he was very careful to say economic populism, to which Adam responds, lots of friends of the show. Lots of friends of the show is talking to one another. He had been the most foaming right-winger on cracking down on migrants, literally adopted the Republican plan and mocking Republicans from the right on the topic. I wouldn't trust him with any type of populism. Agreed. If the liberals look at this and go, well, the only populism that works is right-wing populism, okay? Because there's left-wing populism, the Bernie style of just being like, you know, addressing people's harms, addressing people's issues, and offering universality as a solution, prescriptions to their problems in the form of, you know, government-funded healthcare, for example. And then there's the right-wing populism, which is that, which looks at a person who is angry and says, oh, hold on, doors open. Then there's the right-wing populism that looks at people's anger and frustration and then channels it into those who are weaker, those who are defenseless, those who are underserved. Because you're angry because the gays, you're angry because women have taken your rightful place in society. You're angry because trans people are the top priority for these elite liberals. You're angry because Democrats have flooded migrants into this country. And those migrants are simultaneously bringing in diseases. They are taking your jobs and also simultaneously taking your welfare because they're both lazy and hardworking. They're taking your homes, but they're also homeless. Okay? That's just pure white nativist, fascist nonsense. And yet, in the absence of any sort of counter messaging against that wave of fascist garbage propaganda, you're left with only one option that recognizes your anger. Anyway, let's see what
was on the issue of Gaza. You said when you were going to college campuses, when you were talking to progressives, when you were talking to voters of color, not just Arabs and Muslims, you heard there was a problem here. Do you think that the numbers you saw, particularly in Michigan, vindicated your point of view, or was there just a greater force at work?
I think she would have certainly won Michigan if there was more of a reckoning with the failures of policy on Gaza. That wasn't my point of view. That was the point of view of a lot of people I was hearing on the ground. I also think beyond Michigan, this really was a concern for a lot of young people and a lot of progressives. Now, my hope is because President Trump got some of the votes for the Muslim and Arab community. I was just on a bipartisan Codel in Saudi Arabia. They have said that if the president wants a deal with Saudi Arabia, that the Palestinian state and a two-state solution has to be front and center. And I hope we can work towards actually doing that after the war.
Why are people coming here to say El Communist and bought it and stuff? Are we getting like a little baby brigade? Is that what's going on? We got a little baby brigade? Oh, it's cute, man.
It's interesting in this Monday morning quarterbacking that's happening to hear from so many Democrats now who are saying that they think that economic message should have been front and center, but that they felt constrained somehow by this focus on identity politics. Tom Suozzi of New York.
People should accept that the fact that the heart of the country is racist, that is a silly, self-defeating thing to say. Okay, what's the solution then? Sorry, the country is simply racist, so we have to be racist? Okay, that's the mainstream Democrat position. That's a stupid position. It's not the correct position. Okay, stop saying this shit. While there is truth to the matter that America is a very racist country, okay, you have to actively push back against that. He's not saying it. It has to be that way, just the way it is. No. When you say, I think we have to accept that America's a racist position, America's a racist country, is stupid. Here, this was a really good message on this. The leftist position is that people's positions, even if horrific, have roots in their material reality. The liberal position, as best as I can tell, is that 20 to 30% of the country has an irredeemably evil soul. I guess I'm going with the one that you can actually do something about. Like if it's one or the other, even if I'm wrong, I'm going with a version that presents a path forward other than what? Wholesale murder or imprisonment of millions of our countrymen so they can't do politics anymore? Half of the country is evil. Okay, next question is obviously, well, what are you going to do about it? Calling them evil clearly didn't work. Like, there is always a push and pull here, okay? I like to have fun. And your brother, you say America's racist all the time. It is. But that is not how you can run a fucking campaign, especially if you're like, and the solution is we got to be more racist. Okay. The solution is to try and see where people are hurting and then actively bring them into the coalition by making an earnest effort, by showing them that you're honest about wanting to improve their material conditions. Okay. That's it. Whether they want it or not does not matter. And there are plenty of people who do want it. Why the fuck would people go, nah, I don't want good things. I want bad things to continue. That's it.
Brought that up, talking about Republicans being able to weaponize anarchy on college campuses, defunding the police, and gender questions and girls' sports. Do you think this, movement, woke politics?
Yeah, Kamala Harris, ironically, did not do any of this. And it's something that I actually thought was good. It was one of the high notes. There was a couple high notes in the campaign. One, looking at tariffs and immediately counter messaging tariffs as like a widespread sales tax that's inherently inflationary. It's not only correct, but they did do counter messaging against that. That was smart. In the start, when they said they are going to go after price gougers by using pre-existing law. Okay, that was good. They should have kept that up. They did not make that the signature policy of the campaign. That would have been fantastic if they did do that, but they didn't. Oh, well. Okay. And last but not least, Kamala Harris's active refusal of using regular Democratic Party identity markers was a smart move. Are you implying detaining the 40% and forced re-education, right? No, I mean, I joke about re-education all the fucking time, but like, obviously, if we're going to be serious, it's not about re-educating people by putting them in fucking camps. It's just about educating people, like just educating people at all, okay? Improve the literacy in this goddamn country.
Really was incredibly damaging to the left because a large part of that came from the progressive wing on which you are a member.
Well, I have always said that we need to be emphasizing the economic issues, but I don't think we should run away for standing up for trans rights, for standing up for equal rights for people, for teaching American history responsibly. You can be true to your values with two things, Margaret. One, if someone disagrees with you, we need to respect that disagreement, not cancel or shame them. Don't shy away from your convictions, but have a reasonable conversation. I did that with Megyn Kelly on a podcast on trans rights. I stuck to my position, but we had a reasonable conversation. The second thing is, if we emphasize the economic hardships people are facing. I've got $12 trillion in my district in Silicon Valley, while towns like Johnstown were hollowed out, Galesburg, Illinois were hollowed out. We can build new factories. We can build new industry. We can create new economic opportunity. We have a vision of how to do that. President Biden started it. I think we can win over people, even if they may not agree with us on a particular social issue.
He's doing the same face in both of those different moments from that interview. Anyway, we have a lot of election watch, but I think before we continue with that, let's get to some fun shit. Specifically, and yeah, I also talked to Drew of Washington Post for like an hour and a half, a lot of which was on background anyway, like that, was helpful for their coverage on this. But I ended up with 2 quotes in this article. But yeah, this is a good piece as well about inside the online offensive that turned out a new generation of men for Trump. Wow, the mainstream media are demons. You want us to listen to them? Yes, I do it every day. I could not do what I do without mainstream media, without real coverage, without real journalists. People seem to forget that the New York Times has 2,700 journalists that they employ. Okay, that is like, it's impossible for someone else like myself, especially to do that. You should be a real journalist. Yeah, okay. That's right. I should just stop what I'm doing, which is commentary, and, do journalism instead. Obviously, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to stop the thing that I'm successful at, the thing that I've seen a tremendous amount of success in, which is you know, de-radicalizing people, actively communicating, actively trying to, you know, pull people off the ledge of radicalization. But let's get back to the real world. Why does baldness scare you? First of all, I do not have internalized bald phobia. What I do have, on the other hand, is bald fetishization. You can call me out for the correct thing. If you were to say, Hassan, why do you fetishize the bald so much? That makes sense. That's valid. Okay, I do fetishize the bald a little bit too much. But if you were to say, yeah, we're going to watch the By Donkeys, don't worry, led by donkeys. Let's
now in studio is pollster and communication analyst Frank Luntz. He's been tracking voters in
Hasanabi moot Frank Luntz.
Focus groups with the New York Times throughout 2024. And
once again, I just want to repeat that, like, Frank Luntz is a right-wing pollster and is a right-wing messaging guy. So just so you understand how, like, how right-wing American media is in general, before you say, like, oh, well, as a right-wing guy, don't you think that he could have an accurate assessment of, like, things that are going on? He could, like, focus group. It's always going to have the biases, okay? And it should ring some alarm bells, I think, for people, maybe, that are Democrats. What? That is an insane statement that you just said. That's a bit too much. That tweet that you sent me was a bit much. Okay. I clicked on it, I read it, and I was like, okay, I can't read that out loud.
And is here with some insights on what unfolded in this historic election. So, Frank, before we get to your focus groups, you admitted quite candidly that you were wrong about something major after the election. You thought this election, if I have you right, was over after the debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. What happened?
It simply wasn't. And in the end, the debate did not matter. The public is used to what Trump says. They did not hold it against him. The dogs and cats, which people made fun of, memes were created. It did not impact people because, and one of the things we have to acknowledge is the importance of the truth. We have to tell it.
Well, that was not the truth when he said that.
No, and I thought that would kill him, but it didn't. And one of the things that really matters in elections going forward is we have the responsibility to tell them the truth, and they have the right to get the truth. And quite frankly, we are a different country today than we were even 8 years ago. What we judge people by, sometimes it's ignoring the information becomes more important than what you say. And that was the challenge with Harris.
I'm going to keep repeating the same point over and over again. As material conditions worsen, as people feel more and more anxious and more upset about their circumstances, and as no one seemingly responds to those issues, if the other side is at least like acknowledging and addressing their anger and then channeling it towards whatever avenue they see fit, okay, they're not going to give a fuck about the virulent racism. And sometimes they're going to actually lean into that racism. They're going to believe the racism. Okay. A lot of people will turn around and say, no, you don't understand. America's just like irredeemably racist. There's nothing we can do about it. And it's very frustrating to leave it at that.
Harris, she didn't say enough.
All right. So let's get to your focus groups. You did a series of focus groups with young voters who were persuadable, undecided late in the summer, and then you went back right before the election after they had voted.
It's so sad that the American left constantly capitulates and supports libs to defeat the far right, and now libs are like, no, fuck leftists, we don't want them. No, I think every leftist understands that liberals are inherently antagonistic towards them. What are you talking about? What leftist is like saying, oh man, we love liberals, like there's nothing we can do? I think that the sobering examination of American politics requires you to come to terms with the reality that we have a duopoly. We have two capitalist parties that represent bourgeois interests, that represents the interests of capital, right? Represents corporate interests only above all else. And that regardless of that, your goal should be to try and force at least one of the two parties into adopting certain frameworks that you have been advocating for. If you can't get the party, the establishment of the party, to recognize that, is this not the same as economic anxiety excuse? No. The reason why it's not the same as the economic anxiety excuse is because I'm not excusing the racism. I'm very correctly calling it out every single day. My problem is when we talk about the solutions to this, okay? When we talk about the solutions to this, I always tell you one thing. You should be uncompromising in defending marginalized communities, but you should also understand where people become more vulnerable. Okay? If you don't recognize that economic volatility, economic instability, and people feeling like they have a worse future presented for them than the previous generation, they are going to be infinitely more susceptible to reactionary framing on issues. Okay? That's why I am a firm and committed advocate for Medicare for all, for example. And I always say Medicare for all means all, including Nazis, right? There is no like Medicare except the people I hate. Because the goal there is to, at the very least, improve people's material conditions unconditionally so that they are less susceptible to reactionary framing. This does not mean that this will magically cause racism to perish, okay? It doesn't. Doesn't mean that at all. And there will be people who fight tooth and nail every step of the way. But one, it is the right thing to do regardless, okay? Because everyone deserves a life of dignity. And two, the goal is to eliminate the underlying problems that make people more susceptible to right-wing framing in an environment where white supremacist attitudes are taken for granted. That's why Republicans can so easily point to things that are going on, like pre-existing oppressive structures, and say, that's just common sense. That's just common sense. We want more of this common sense.
Early. Let's play a little bit of the conversation we had with them. This was on Zoom. I want to play just a short clip.
How many of you, by a show of hands, disliked both candidates? Do you have a negative opinion of both? It is literally every single person here. What does that say to you about American democracy, that you didn't like the Republican or the Democrat? Pierce, you go first.
I mean, I think it just shows how polarized we've become, and that, I mean, people vote based on...
Is it polarized? Honestly, I feel like, doesn't it sound like you guys are in unison, collectively decided that you're not polarized? That just like both of the parties suck and don't represent your best interest?
Their party over country. And I mean, it's unfortunate to see. I don't think we'll ever see another election in our lifetime where there's one candidate that truly wins in a Reagan landslide.
Harris ran on the platform of, I'm not Trump. And that's not enough to be a president. You need to have more than, well, I'm better than this person. You got to explain how you're going to fix our democracy, how you're going to make the United States a better place. And I didn't get that from her. And if she's saying, I'm just going to do everything the same as Biden, well, then I have concerns too, because I'm not really happy with the direction that our country is going in terms of inflation and other issues in our economy.
And that was actually the day after the election. So bottom line, what was the factor with these people that were undecided and then broke against Kamala Harris?
They did not like either candidate. That was clear. They thought that Trump was offensive and abusive in his language and polarizing. But in the end, she didn't answer the question that they wanted to know. What are you going to do in the first hour, in the first day, in the first week, the first month, and so on? They felt they had the right to hear this. And if she won't tell them that, then they couldn't give her their vote. And other voters, not just the young voters, felt that she never came clean with what she wanted to do. And the fact that she changed her positions in some issues, she never really explained it.
She talked too much about Trump.
It was too much defining what Trump was.
Not defining herself.
And John, we all know what Trump is. We experienced him for 4 years. Whoever told her to focus on him committed political malpractice. Because in the end, you cannot change someone's point of view on him. It was all about her.
Okay, there was a lot of talk about the gender gap throughout this campaign, usually focusing on how she was doing on women and Trump's problems with women. But you spent some focus groups talking with men who had voted for Hillary Clinton, they had voted for Joe Biden, and then they voted for Donald Trump.
He was their voice. In him, they saw someone who represented them, and with her, they saw, and it was great, young women getting excited for the first time, surrounded by women, talking about issues like abortion. That was great for the female vote. But men felt ignored, they felt forgotten, and they felt like they didn't even matter. And in the end, the Democratic Party has to keep both of them. It is not enough to capture the women's vote. these middle class, middle income, moderate men, I call it M cubed, they're the key to any election, and they felt betrayed by her.
Okay, so before you go, what do Democrats have to do to get competitive again?
How do you win when you lose the union vote? They had the union leadership, but not the union membership. How do you win if you lose Latinos? In fact, a majority of Latino men voted for Trump.
52%.
It's incredible how many traditional Democrats, and the reason why is that she became ideological, and what they want is simple.
Abortion was a great thing to run on, but you also need to run on issues like affecting like all the economy. Look, the campaign was cooked from the start because of Joe Biden. And Joe Biden was cooked from the start because Democrats do not highlight some of the good things that they've done. They just assume that people will figure it out on their own. That's why it was very frustrating for someone like myself, even, who is very antagonistic to the administration for a multitude of different fuck ups that they engaged in, that like myself and maybe Majority Report were some of the few places where you actually heard about Biden administration's accomplishments. Like, think about that. MSNBC was far too predisposed throughout the duration of this administration with like a whole bunch of weird nonsense, I suspect, instead of genuinely highlighting some of the accomplishments of the administration. Because, yeah, secular talk as well. Like pre-October 2023, there was a lot that you could point to with respect to the accomplishments of the administration. And I certainly did in moments where they did deserve praise. Okay? But throughout the year, you're supposed to do that all the time. It can't be like the Biden's wins account, which also featured a litany of ridiculous nonsense as well. Like the Biden administration was running, at least up until a certain point, I would say maybe even before the midterms, on a anti-corporate billionaire populist strategy. They were directly antagonistic to a lot of big businesses. And yet they were too afraid of describing that. They were too afraid of showcasing that. They were too afraid of even like beefing up the vibes on that front. But ultimately, there was also a lot of stuff that they did that was really bad, really wrong. Okay. And why do they rest on their laurels? I don't know. But that's besides the point anyway, because even someone like myself who is pro-labor union is still not going to overlook the fact that they ran with an incredibly right-wing anti-immigrant strategy that I am completely against, okay? That I think was both parts bad politics and bad policy. And I said it over and over and over again from the moment that they unveiled their right-wing immigration package. Besides that point, though, there was a necessity for expanding the existing welfare state that they simply let expire in many instances, right? SNAP benefits, child tax credits, like profoundly popular expansions of the welfare state were left behind. And they never chose to punish the Republicans for it. And as a matter of fact, if you recall my early assessment, my early analysis, even during the IRA Build Back Better struggle that was happening within Congress, if you go back and watch some of my old videos from that time frame, I was so consistently yelling at the Democratic leadership for not punishing these spoilers from within. Okay? There were a lot of moments where it seemed like the Democrats were in a state of panic and in a state of disorder because Joe Manchin was fucking up the strategy. And instead of whipping those votes, instead of coming down with the strength of the state to ensure that Joe Manchin played ball, okay? What is this? Here's you getting mad in June before the infamous debate. Biden. I hate Biden. Biden is a genocidal freak. Why am I talking about his fucking dubs and he's not? Think about that. What the fuck are they doing? I cover the news and I have I watch closely what the Democratic Party is doing and what the re-election campaign is doing. And I promise you, I fucking despise Biden, as you guys know. Okay? I have talked significantly more about this administration's W's than the administration itself. What the fuck is going on? Yeah. If you go back even further in time, during the Build Back Better conversations that were taking place, I also regularly yelled about the fact that like Democrats were not whipping these votes internally. And that was making it seem like it was actually the Democrats' fault that there was gridlock, when it was always the Republicans that were universally against all of these policy accomplishments that would be helpful for every American. Republicans rarely have issues with that sort of thing, with the rare exception of like John McCain refusing to strike down Obamacare, refusing to destroy Obamacare. And it's, you know, outside of that very unique circumstance, Republicans are almost always in unison. Democrats never communicated their accomplishments throughout the year. They just never campaign year round in the way that the Republicans do. Republicans never stop campaigning. So not only are they bad across the board. Oh, here, I'm like, I hate her so much. Not only did she vote against increasing the $15 minimum wage because working. I'm talking about Kirsten Sinema. But she did it in like the worst way possible. Like she did it in the quirky, ooh, look at me, I'm a bisexual Gemini way. People are going to like that's going to trigger the fuck out of so many people. Like obviously some of them are not going to go and like join the Republican Party because like someone decided to do a very conservative thing in the Democratic Party. But my God, dude, like, I mean, I'll just show you. Senator Sinema voting no on the minimum wage amendment. So disrespectful, dude. Like, this is some real us girl shit. I mean, it literally feels like she was just doing it specifically so she gets this kind of backlash. Yeah, she thought it was her McCain moment. Like, all you're doing is creating more of a rift between those in the middle class, lower middle class, or maybe even like upper middle class, and people who are poor, the working poor pitted against the middle class Americans who feel like they are not getting something out of the government that they thought that they were about to get for no reason whatsoever, because absolutely zero people were like, honestly, we really need to limit the scope of this. Like, who was making that argument? Republicans certainly weren't. Republicans are too busy talking about Mr. Potato Head's cock, okay? That's literally all Republicans have been talking about. They are so insanely hyper-focused on the culture war because they realize that, like, taking a stand, especially in the aftermath of the Trump administration, taking a stand against left-wing economic populism is not going to be good. You think Republicans are going to fucking go out and talk to their newly acquired base or their newly galvanized base of support and tell them like, well, actually, we need austerity measures and we need to be a little bit more responsible because the deficit this, the deficit that. Like, no, that's not. Republicans know that they can't do that. So they talk about Mr. Potato Head's cock and they talk about Dr. Seuss. That's why they've been doing this while there's an ongoing conversation. So let me ask you all this, okay? If you love the Democratic Party, if you literally jerk off the photos of Nancy Pelosi because you have a shrine dedicated to her because you think the Democrats are the best thing that's ever happened, even if you feel that way, even if you're the #1 Democratic Party supporter, okay, explain to me how it is acceptable for Democrats to just take L's over and over again because of a couple psychopaths in their own ranks that literally want to spoil a very popular policy that was the center of the Democratic National Campaign. Like, this is what Joe Biden ran on. Joe Biden ran on increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour, okay? Joe Biden and Georgia directly tied to $2,000 stimmies. What are you doing? Why are you trying to show people like, well, okay, we're actually so bad that even when we claw our way into power, we are not going to fight for it all the way to the end, tooth and nail, and put up an honest to God fight and even push for it and even successfully get this rammed through. Democrats never fight as hard as Republicans do for the action. Just want to remind everybody that $15 minimum wage just passed in the state of Missouri. $15 minimum wage passed in the state of Missouri with a ballot measure. Now tell me, this is my analysis from March 5th, 2021, including paid sick leave too. Think about that. Missouri, on the other hand, did not vote blue. What's that about? actual policy goals that they run on. Republicans run on cutting taxes. They cut it. It doesn't matter. They will kill motherfuckers if they have to, but they're going to cut those taxes. Democrats don't do that. And I'm not seeing a lot of spoiler talks from the National Democratic Party currently in regards to Kyrsten Sinema, Joe Manchin, Hassan, and all these other fucking senators and congresspersons that are operating as spoilers on a very popular policy that 60% of the country wants, even 60% of the constituents in West Virginia want, for example. So what's up? Whenever the left is playing the spoiler because they want to secure more benefits for the working class, they are lambasted. You bring out every... You could have played this on election night. Yeah. I mean, I can just play you all my old videos. That's it. I should just do a rerun channel where I just play all my old fucking takes on every single issue so that people understand that I've been consistent on this stuff for the longest time. And you can tell this from a while ago because one, I'm in my old apartment, and two, I'm fat as fuck. Kaya down. Every Democratic talking head to go on national news and shit all over the fucking progressive caucuses. And all the progressives are like, oh, they're so silly. They're so silly. Why are they spoiling all this? But when Joe Manchin does this, where the fuck is the rest of the Democratic Party shitting on Joe Manchin? Huh? Why are they not applying pressure to Joe Manchin? Why are they not applying pressure to Sinema? Why are they not talking about how these guys are literally pitting the Democratic Party's electoral success? If you don't care about the fucking working poor, because a lot of libs, unfortunately, quite frankly, do not. They only claim to care about it, so they feel morally superior, but they don't actually care about it. So if you don't care about the working poor, but you care about the success of the Democratic Party because that's your fucking team and this is team sports and you want to own the cons, then why the fuck are you allowing Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema and a couple other dipshits that are supposedly centrist to ruin this process? Please explain that to me. Almost self-aware. I love when dumbasses come in here and think that I'm just like some fucking silly lib and are like, oh, wow, look at him criticizing the Democratic Party. What an own. Bitch, I criticized the Democratic Party while you were proteining your dad's balls, okay? Shut the fuck up. So they are just hurting their midterm chances. If they don't care about anything else, it's just midterm chances, and they are hurting it, okay? That's great. It's great. You're allowing an opening for the Republicans to literally not take a position at all on the $15 minimum wage. You are allowing Republicans to not come out and say it with their chest that they don't think the working poor deserve $15 an hour. You're literally letting them get away. You lost his aura, bro. This is why I always laugh when people say, Hassan, I used to like him quite a bit, but over the years I realized what a radical he is. Or I used to like him quite a bit, but his positions changed quite dramatically. It's like, no, dumbass, you changed. Okay, no, you changed. You started watching fucking drama perverts, and you started filtering all of the opinions that I have through an inherently negative lens, and then you became this fucking massive hater. That's it. I have direct evidence that these positions have remained the fucking same throughout the years, throughout when you first started watching me. That's the problem. That's the issue. The issue is I was right back then. I'm still fucking right now. I've been saying this exact same stuff for the past decade at this point. The only thing that changed is you got algorithm duped into watching like one drama video, and then your entire YouTube feed turned into a Hassan fuckfest, a fuck Hassan fuckfest, and you now do not actually have the capacity to listen to what I'm saying or even acknowledge the things that I was saying that you used to agree with, and your worldview slowly but surely changed on top of that. It's laughable. It is laughable when people say this stuff. Just like it's laughable when they're like, oh, dude, you're a grifter. You're a grifter. It's like, yeah, dude, I decided to grift in the worst way possible by putting myself in front of a community that is oftentimes directly in support of the things that I'm advocating for, but will still find like minor disagreements to yell at me over. Okay? Yeah. If I was a grifter, I would just grift right wing. It's the easiest thing to do. You don't have to be charismatic. You don't have to be smart. You can just say the things, right? Or if I wanted a national media presence, I could just be a liberal. Okay? If I can sell you an idea that is that most people are inherently antagonistic towards, like a socialist vision, a socialist alternative, then why the fuck do you think I can't sell you on liberalism? It's already something that half the country takes for granted. It's all they read, it's all they see in mainstream media. Or conservatism, which is, again, all people on the other side of the political spectrum see and hear in mainstream media, with quietly opposing it, because the entire for independent media, liberalism is in my opinion, for independent media, if you were going to go that route, conservatism is a way easier one to do than liberal. Because at the end of the day, liberal perspectives are so common. Liberal perspectives are so easy to find. So differentiating yourself from like MSNBC is going to be hard. Some people do that by being super edgy and advocating to say the N-word as a white guy because they genuinely believe that you should be able to do that, for example. Or highlighting Nazis and cultivating a community of fucking 4chan losers. Some people do that. But even then, to varied success, it's not always very successful. However, what is objectively easy to do is just to be a right-winger, to just be racist, to just constantly complain about how there's diversity and representation in all of the culture and art that you consume, and that sucks. And it makes you feel like a victim, that you're a victim of society. You are being victimized. That's the easiest thing to do. And in the independent media route, there's a massive, massive lane for you. Conversation revolves around the dumbass, supposedly centrist Democrats that are enough, two of them that are enough to fucking ruin this entire process. Anyway, why do you think the Democrats are much more feeble than Republicans? Because they're controlled opposition. They just are. They are controlled opposition. So we've established that there is bad optics of the situation. I don't even think I need to get into the bad policy part of the situation, that like we don't have the $15 minimum wage, because it's not going to pass in a it's not going to pass while the filibuster exists in the Senate. It's not. It's just not going to fucking happen. So that's why this was a one opportunity, one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow the type of ordeal for the $15 minimum wage. And stop giving a shite. Thank you for the 10. Give this subs. Fucking blew it. It's great. Fucking awesome. Senator Sinema says this was her statement. Senator Sinema, I understand what it's like to face tough choices while working to meet your family's most basic needs. I also know the difference better wages can make, which is why I helped lead Arizona's effort to pass an index minimum wage in 2006 and strongly supported the voter-approved state minimum wage increase in 2016. No person who works full-time should live in poverty. Senators in both parties have shown support for raising the federal minimum wage, and the Senate should hold an open debate. And yeah, anyway, this video was published on March 15th, 2021. It wasn't just Kirsten Sinema, it was Joe Manchin, it was Maggie Hassan. There's always like a rotating squad of villains. Bob Menendez. And the Democratic Party doesn't do anything to secure their votes. The Republican Party would never allow such a thing, okay? They don't. Yeah, and under the Obama administration, you had Joe Lieberman. But like, my point is, Democrats also personally advance the interests of these people, okay? Harris got the endorsement of Beyonce, J-Lo, Eminem. I thought at least those celeb campaigning will move the needle a bit. No, fuck no. Nobody gives a shit about rich, out-of-touch people endorsing someone. The only reason why they care about the podcast route is because people have a deep and personal connection with podcasters. They have a parasocial relationship with their podcasters. And on top of that, it's not just the podcasters themselves. They get to see a humanized version of this politician that they might vote for, Donald Trump, in this circumstance. Celebrity endorsements don't have juice. They don't have motion. It don't mean shit.
Simple common sense. What they want is a meaningful, measurable change from the past. And she's talking about having no difference in her policies versus Joe Biden. The Democrats have to do this examination. And it's not about getting angry with Donald Trump. It's figuring out exactly the words, the phrase.
I'll also take it one step further. This is a quote that I saw earlier on my timeline. During the Vietnam War, every respectable artist in this country was against the war. It was like a laser beam. We were all aimed in the same direction. The power of this weapon turns out to be that of a custard pie dropped from a step ladder 6 feet high. In a sea. Weren't you very dismissive about the whole Trump's going on podcast thing? No, originally when he did the Aiden Ross thing, I was. Because that didn't track as like positive media overall. But the Theo Vaughn podcast was what changed my perception of everything. Because he very quickly after the Aiden Ross thing went on Theo Vaughn. And I was like, oh my God, this is getting him in front of a lot of people and it's making him look like a human being and not like a monster. That's when I realized like this is going to be dangerous. Outside of that, however, there's two different ways of looking at the podcast bro route. There's a manosphere out there that has tremendous weight. Okay. There's like, these people are not directly in the tank for Trump in many instances, but it doesn't matter. Like the politics that they represent and the communities that they foster are inherently antagonistic towards, women and a variety of different, like other marginalized communities. They don't have to openly come out and be in the tank for Donald Trump to present to present an outward right-wing community and cultivate said community. And they exist in this ecosystem where they do sometimes end up cross-pollinating audiences between like people who are directly in the tank for Donald Trump, people who are directly podcasters and independent media figures that are Republican Party operatives, such as like the Daily Wire. Okay. That's also the reason why I said it would be great if Kamala Harris went on Joe Rogan, despite the fact that I don't think she would be able to present herself in the same human way that Donald Trump was able to, just, even though he rambles a lot. You give charitable takes on both sides, which is why I love it here. You don't deserve the hate you get. Most people who hate on you haven't ever been in for a while on stream. It's crazy how much they watch a little clip and assume. Love you. Yeah, I also speak for 8 to 10 hours every single day on politics, polarizing issues. And because of that, it's very easy to clip something completely out of context. Like, this was a major problem with Joe Rogan originally. Early on, he would complain about this all the time, where he's like, I'm talking free flow for 3 hours. Okay. You can, in that process, always misunderstand me. It is what it is. There's not much I can do. And there are still people who are, very much invested in making $1 here and there to do this kind of shitty smear job. And there's definitely always, as my community has grown, as my career has become more successful, my haters and the communities that they've cultivated have also gotten larger. To expand on that Vonnegut quote, my dissertation is completely about how art would currently is catered to the liberal safety net of critique. When any farther left critique occurs, it's celebrated, yes, but then is co-opted by capital and inherently neutered by collector tax racket space. Fair.
And you said it, not just Donald Trump winning the election, but winning the popular vote. First time in 2 decades for a Republican. And how did he do it? He did it by transforming the Republican Party. It is now more diverse than it's ever been in modern times, and certainly much more than when Donald Trump first came on the scene 8 years ago. A lot of ways to look at this. How about this here? When it says pre-Trump, that's the last presidential election.
Someone called you a scumbag, and it literally made me laugh out loud because you're just one of the most consistently passionate, and I assume you meant not terrible creators. It makes me curious to even see your hate videos because I can't imagine. No, if you don't watch me at all, if you don't understand what my worldview is at all, 100%, if you only watch hate videos, you would think I'm a scumbag. Yeah, it makes sense. 400,000. Blame everyone except the politician running the campaign, Lamont. I don't understand why people are so obsessed with not hurting a politician's feelings. I mean, she did only have 100 days to campaign against the guy who's been campaigning for almost a decade. Like, we didn't even get a little slogan. It doesn't seem like there's liberals crying in the chat, in the replies. Yeah, that's how hate videos work, though. Media literacy does not exist in America. Also, if you're busy all the fucking time and you watch like a short little 20-minute video of like, brief snippets that are framed in a very specific direction, yeah, of course you're going to fucking despise me. I get that. I do. 20 minutes is short. Yeah, 20 minutes is short in comparison to an 8-hour stream, Chad. That's what I'm saying. Do you guys not get it? The funniest thing that I've experienced in my career is that I've been very consistent throughout this entire process, right? And one thing that I've noticed that's pretty funny is that the early resentments that people have towards me for being right but too early still carry on, even if they come to agree with my position. I'll give you an example. I'm sure that there are a shit ton of people who are XQC fans or former XQC fans now who still fucking despise me because I was like, kick is bad, stake is bad, cryptocurrency casino is bad, right? And it's going to poison your own content, and it's going to slowly but surely like isolate you, alienate you, that sort of thing, right? And because of that, I got primed against like pretty fucking hard, right? Hassan and the like. People were just like spamming that all the time. That was like a huge thing on the platform. XQC is the largest At the time, he was the largest content creator on the platform. So every time he shit on me, of course, a lot of people who love him were like, yeah, he's right. This guy fucking sucks. So even though, ironically enough, they might now be former HCC fans who are like, yeah, the gambling stuff like really broke him or whatever. They still also fucking despise me because the early resentment that they had towards my position, which they've now arrived at, has still carried on. And that's it. I don't even fault people for that either. Okay? It is what it is. It's so funny to have like a guy who be like, I fucking hate you, dog, and not really examine why and not really ask themselves why. Because if they were to do so, they would be like, wait a minute, I kind of agree with that assessment now. Maybe I should reconsider. You know what I mean? It is what it is. And it's not just XU. I just use them as one example. There's a million different examples of this. You know?
Before Donald Trump started running, you got to go back to 2012 for that. Remember, 3 straight elections, Trump's been the Republican candidate. So pre-Trump, voters under 30 were...
They will say you were so right about Kamala being a turd and thought you were wrong, but now they know you were right. But I think you made those 20 million stay at home and should have shut up till the election. Yeah. Yeah. People don't understand that at the time when I was making... people don't understand that at the time when I was making those criticisms, I was making them because I wanted Kamala Harris to present a stronger candidacy against Donald Trump. I wanted the Democratic Party not to be like right wing on immigration regardless, because I think it's fucking bad politics and bad policy. But, you know, it is what it is.
We're going for the Democrats by 23 points. Folks with incomes under 50,000, 22 points for the Democrats. Folks without college degrees, 4 points for the Democrats. That's pre-Trump. What comes out of this election? Look at some of these shifts. The youth vote, that Democratic margin cut more than in half. Voters under 50,000, now a Republican constituency. Voters without a college degree, look at that shift. Now a core Republican constituency. And then we can talk about race, ethnicity. This gets into that diversity I mentioned a minute ago. Check this out. Again, pre-Trump versus now. The black vote still overwhelmingly Democratic, but that's a 15-point shift. It used to be 87 points for the Democrats, down to 72. How about this? You've heard a lot about it this week. This is what the numbers look like. Hispanic voters were 44 points Democratic before Donald Trump. Now, basically a toss-up constituency. And Asian Americans, a 32-point shift there as well. That's
one thing to also consider in these conversations is not necessarily that like people who are Asian or Hispanic went from like voting for Joe Biden to then voting for Donald Trump. And there are still plenty of people that did that for sure. But the reason why the percentages look like that is because the Democrats Trump has never said Latinx. Neither has the Democrats. Shut the fuck up. Okay. Kamala Harris not once said fucking Latinx. Maybe at most like back in like 2019 or some shit. But she has not said that. She literally went to Guatemala in like the month of April in 2021 and was like, do not come. Do not come here. We hate you. Do not come. Okay? Stop fantasizing. Stop hallucinating what Democrats are saying and then like make these false assessments. What are you, a fucking Democratic Party campaign staffer? Are you a Democratic Party consultant? Is that what happened? Why are you defending the Dems and their fucking campaign failures by pointing to a thing that they didn't do? God forbid we take a fucking cold, hard look at ourselves. You know what I mean? Holy shit. Nope. Can't do that. So the problem here, as I was trying to explain, the numbers or the data behind the numbers is that it's not necessarily that like all of these people went from voting for Joe Biden to voting for Trump. I'm sure there were Biden and Trump voters for sure. The problem is the base overall that the Democratic Party would activate regularly within the Hispanic Latino population, within the Asian population, within the black population, they just didn't fucking vote. Okay? They didn't. They did not vote. And when they do not vote, then yeah, and the Republicans still turn out the same base, or maybe even turn some people from the Democratic Party's base. This is what happens.
What's happened to the Republican Party since Donald Trump became its standard bearer 8 years ago. This has been the movement.
It's so funny also is like, have you seen the accusations of hacking? Yes, I've seen a lot of liberals trying to cope. And in that sea of cope, they have decided to do the Republican thing and just like make stuff up. Abel Ronaldo, less debate. Bro, you'll cook me. I'm fearful. I'm scared.
Take a look and get your reaction on the other side.
Bernie Sanders has not won. Let me, with all due respect, and I have a great deal of respect for him, for what he stands for, but I don't respect him saying that the Democratic Party has abandoned the working class families.
Senator, how do you respond to Nancy Pelosi?
Well, Nancy's a friend of mine, and we've worked together on many issues. But here is the reality. I have to say to Nancy, in the Senate in the last 2 years, we have not even brought forth legislation to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, despite the fact that some 20 million people in this country are working for less than $15 an hour. In America today, we have not brought, in the Senate, we have not brought to the floor the PRO Act to make it easier for workers to join unions. We're not talking about defined benefit pension plans so that our elderly can retire with security. We're not talking about lifting the cap on Social Security so that we can extend the solvency of Social Security and raise benefits. Bottom line, if you're an average working person out there, do you really think that the Democratic Party is going to the mats, taking on powerful special interests and fighting for you? I think the overwhelming answer is no, and that is what has got to change.
Thanks for watching. Stay up.
Yeah, we'll get to Bernie in a second. Let's see the way that like the Republican base has become more diverse. And then after that, we'll get to Bernie's defense of himself.
And meanwhile, for the Democratic Party, the story is the opposite. Pre-Trump versus now. Check out some of these movements. Among white voters, this was a 20-point Republican constituency before Trump. Still a Republican constituency, but a little bit less so. And white voters are such a massive share of the electorate. That 4-point shift, very meaningful. Again, college-educated voters now, a core Democratic constituency. Folks earning more than $100,000 used to be a Republican constituency, now a Democratic constituency. And this gets to, we talk all about the battlegrounds. Trump swept the battlegrounds. But the other big story this week has to do with the popular vote and how Trump pulled that off. Here's one answer. Big blue states with very diverse populations. This new coalition that Donald Trump's assembled, it meant that he didn't win any of these, but he made some giant strides. California, biggest of them all, 29-point Biden win 4 years ago. Currently, only 18 for Harris, her home state. Look at New York. Basically, Trump cutting that Democratic margin in half. Go down this list and look inside those states and you'll see it. Blue-collar areas, cities, metro areas with large Hispanic populations, that's where Trump made his big gains there. We'll land on this one map, one battleground state that I think tells the story of these two coalitions here visually. Let's call up Wisconsin. We know in this election, Wisconsin went to Donald Trump. You're looking at a pre-Trump election because I just want to show you this is what a battleground state like Wisconsin looked like not that long ago. When Barack Obama ran and carried the state over John McCain, look at all the blue here. So many of these are small rural counties with blue-collar populations. Barack Obama could sweep almost all these counties. Democrats were competitive here.
John McCain was a pivotal point for the Republican Party. Under the Obama administration, the Republicans actively did the Tea Party caucus, which was, again, led by the Koch brothers at the time, now Koch brother, because the other one died. But John McCain was the old school, I would say, country club Republican, more moderate in a lot of positions, whereas they wanted to basically hyper-focus on a base that was growing, and they wanted to prime them. So what did they do? McCain was the last Bush Republican. Yeah, you mean George H.W. Bush, though, not George W. Bush. Because I would go so far as to say that George W. Bush was like an in-between, a country club Republican and the Tea Party Republican, the Tea Party style Republican. If we were to bracket the Republican Party, there's like two different aspects to it. Back in the day, you had the William F. Buckley style elitist Republicans who would talk about melting the poor very openly, and they were the party of the elite. Okay, then Ronald Reagan was the first shot of swapping that out for like a yokel, a salt of the earth type person. He was an actor, so I think he was able to basically fit that role, but he still had that country club attitude. Okay, despite being a massive populist. George H.W. Bush, on the other hand, was very much so the boring, lame-ass nerd, country club Republican. And then George W. Bush was somewhere in between again. Okay. HW came after Reagan. No, I'm explaining to you how over the years they leaned more and more into the populist Tea Party, outwardly racist, dare I say, stupid version of the party. Okay. George W. Bush was somewhere in between because he was, also presenting himself as a salt of the earth type person, kind of goofy, kind of silly, kind of telegenic, kind of charismatic. And I think that after that, the Republican Party tried to get back to the old method with John McCain. And then to even less success, they thought John McCain lost because of Sarah Palin. So they brought forward an even more country club style Republican with Mitt Romney. Okay. Obama won both times. And then the rest is history, obviously. You know the rest. You were there for it. Trump, full tilt, went right-wing populist, full tilt, no more country club Republican bullshit. And seemingly all of the people that left the party at that time frame, the Lincoln Project people, the former Obama administration consultants, went and found themselves comfortably in the confines of the Democratic Party and have actively tried to change the Democratic Party and successfully have changed the Democratic Party into the image of the country club Republican Party. But Romney was a country club Republican too, which I think ultimately may have been the last straw for Republican insiders who kept losing on the elitist strategy. No, the Republican strategists still wanted to run country club Republicans. What do you mean? And they still are trying to run country club Republicans. They just fail because Donald Trump owns them. There were 18 candidates on that fucking stage. You had the classic weirdos that existed in the Republican primaries as well in the past, the flat tax defenders and people of that sort. But then you had Donald Trump. But if you think about it, most of the people that Donald Trump eviscerated, with the exception of a Ben Carson type, most of the people that Donald Trump destroyed were Marco Rubio, Jeb Bush. He destroyed them. He destroyed the country club Republicans. He was like, no, you're done. And then, although they were originally against Trump's reign, right? They had to concede because they were like, we have an election that we must win. Ironic, I know, because Donald Trump does own country clubs, but he is not a country club Republican. Come on. Ironic because he is not only a country club owner, but he is also personally a billionaire, which is exactly what country club Republicans were trying to aesthetically represent. Old money types who speak a certain way. So Donald Trump basically smacked the shit out of the rest of the lineup and completely dominated the Republican Party and changed it by force to suit his own vision. That did not stop the Republicans from trying to actively moderate him and bring the party back to their own vision, their own desires. That's why they slapped him with Mike Pence, who was a freak and a phony and a weird evangelical born-again Christian nut job. Having said that, he was very much in the pocket of the Koch brothers. We saw how that ended. And then this last primary cycle, what did they try to do? They literally held separate conferences for Ron DeSantis. They thought Ron DeSantis is our guy. Then they were like, okay, maybe Nikki Haley is our guy. Donald Trump destroyed them as well. And that's it. He forced them to submit. Once again, the Democrats in the process, I know it sounds insane to say, but I believe the Democrats would have beat Trump if they selected a man. No, I still can't believe someone as saucy as Nikki Haley tried to run. If Nikki Haley was on the ticket, I think she would have done as good as a job as Donald Trump, if not maybe even a better job, honestly. Because why go for the diet version when you have the real thing still comes to mind? Especially when Kamala Harris saw Nikki Haley and literally changed, tried to emulate Nikki Haley. She was making it seem like this general election was going to be the Republican primary 2.0. And in some respects, it was. That's exactly what happened.
Take a look at this map, and I'm going to call up what just happened this week. All that blue has become Look at all that red. All of those blue-collar areas with Donald Trump as the Republican leader for the last 8 years have moved this dramatically to the Republicans, and it's left the Democrats relying more than ever on areas like Madison, Wisconsin, Milwaukee County, areas that have large populations of voters with college degrees, of higher income voters, of progressive voters. And in this election, Kristen, it just wasn't enough for the Democrats to lean on that when they've lost so much ground with blue-collar voters elsewhere.
Steve, it is just striking to look at that map of Wisconsin and, frankly, all the results that you laid out. Now, look, the results are in. They're not going to change. It is worth noting there is still counting going on.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember from 2020, it took about a month till we got all the national popular vote. And let me just show you nationally here, one thing we're waiting on big. We know California is a Harris state, but as I said, still some votes to come. 75% is in. That means there are millions more votes just from California. And there are other states like this. A lot of it has to do with vote by mail, those ballots taking a long time for some of these states. So when you look at where the current popular vote stands, you've got there probably another 10 million or so, when all is said and done, are going to be added to this. This has been the story for a while in states like California. They take a very long time.
All right, let's hear what Bernard had to do. He went through the fucking Sunday circuit.
Bernie Sanders issued a scathing statement after the vice president's loss in what
Chomsky consistently started saying after 2016 that we live in a post-fact world. Would you agree, or do you think the misinformation crisis is more complicated? No, he's 100% on the money. He's so right. And every fucking major institution is participating in that. Dude, if you look no further than the way that every single media outlet covered the story in Amsterdam. Because, like, we know how right-wingers hallucinate an alternative reality and prime their base into believing it. And their entire media ecosystem gets everyone on board with this shit, right? We already know that. But the liberal media space also does that to less success.
What he called a disastrous campaign, saying, quote, "It should come as no great surprise that a Democratic Party which has abandoned working class people would find that the working class has abandoned them." And independent Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont joins me now. Senator Sanders, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here on this Sunday after Election Day. Let's start right there. Your criticism incredibly direct. You say you think the Democratic Party has, quote, abandoned the working class. How exactly do you think Democrats have abandoned the working class, Senator?
Look, the working people of this country are extremely angry. They have a right to be angry. In the richest country in the history of the world, today, the people on top are doing phenomenally well, while 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And millions of families worry that their kids are actually going to have a lower standard of living than they do. You got the top 1% owning more wealth than the bottom 90%. We're the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to...
Quick, put some numbers on the board to talk about how things are actually great, like the GDP and the stock market performance, so that we own Bernie in the marketplace of Reddit, you know? I promise, if we just keep talking about the vibe session. Down ballot here continues to be awful for Republicans. Arizona Senate Gallego, D plus 15. Nevada, Rosen plus 14. North Carolina Governor Stein plus D11. That's the governor, though. It's different. That just about does it for the House. Dems would have to run the table in all 5 CA races, win Piltolo's race in Alaska, and come back in AZ06 to get a bare 218-217 majority. All of that is unlikely to happen. I think North Carolina is a bit unique, as the Republican candidate had a huge scandal break in October. No, it's actually unique for a different reason and very similar for other reasons. I'll explain. It's unique because it's a gubernatorial race, and split ticket voting on governor's races is super common. It's the most common thing. People have a significantly closer investment to who their governor is because they recognize that their governor changes, you know, their immediate conditions pretty dramatically. That's why you see a lot of blue states with red governors and a lot of red states with blue governors. Kentucky comes to mind. Okay. But it's also the same because both Gallego, Rosen, and Stein's opponents were insane. They were green, they were untested, or they were failures. Like they were multiple time failures. Okay? They were very Trumpian. Mark Robinson saying he's, Black Hitler. Or Carrie Lake, the only person who wasn't arrested for storming the Capitol on January 6th, even though she wasn't there, she was there in spirit and carried on that resentment to her fucking dumbass campaign. Just a fucking psychopath. Or Gallego's opponent was, Gallego's opponent was Carrie Lake. Rosen's opponent was a dude who lost his race in fucking, I believe, Texas beforehand. And who, okay, Kaya, come here. Place. Okay, bye. But then how did Brown lose in Ohio? Not as close, and Brown still fucking outperformed. Kamala Harris by fucking 15 points or some shit. What are you talking about? That was the consequence that was the consequence, in my opinion, in Ohio of Kamala Harris's performance. Kaya, place. Sherrod Brown got around 100,000 more votes than Kamala Harris. Anyway, let's get back to Bernard.
All of our people, 25% of our seniors are trying to live on $15,000 a year or less. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. And the gap between the people on top and everybody else is getting wider and wider.
Brown outperformed by 7 points, 15, and he probably would have won. I'm sorry.
And then, Kristen, on top of all of that, we got a corrupt campaign finance system which allows billionaires to buy elections. So if you're an average worker out there, you're saying, hey, I'm working longer and longer hours, going nowhere in a hurry, worried about my kids, and yet the people on top have never had it so good. Where is the Democratic Party? Are they prepared to stand up to these powerful corporate interests, raise the minimum wage, fight for health care for all people? Make sure that all of our kids get the quality education that they need. Expand Social Security. Are they prepared to do those things? That's the issue that we have to address.
Well, as you know, your statement was met with some sharp reaction as well. This is what Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi had to say. Take a look. I'll get your reaction on the other side.
Bernie Sanders has not won. Let me, with all due respect, and I have a great deal of respect for him, for what he stands for, but I don't respect him saying that the Democratic Party has abandoned the working class families.
Senator, how do you respond to Nancy Pelosi?
Well, Nancy's a friend of mine, and we've worked together on many issues. But here is the reality. I have to say to Nancy, in the Senate in the last 2 years, we have not even brought forth legislation to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, despite the fact that some 20 million people in this country are working for less than $15 an hour. In America today, we have not brought, in the Senate, we have not brought to the floor the PRO Act to make it easier for workers to join unions. We're not talking about defined benefit pension plans so that our elderly can retire with security. We're not talking about lifting the cap on Social Security so that we can extend the solvency of Social Security and raise benefits. Bottom line, if you're an average working person out there, do you really think that the Democratic Party is going to the mats, taking on powerful special interests and fighting for you? I think the overwhelming answer is no, and that is what has got to change.
Senator, let me zoom out and just...
Dude, people are, I'm seeing Lebanon libbing out pretty hard. I used to love you, Bernie, but I'm so disappointed you're validating hate. This is just wrong. Bernie, I love you, but not now. Work on recounts. Democrats lost because they refused to acknowledge Palestine. Okay, that's fair. You can't ignore the country's deep-seated racism and misogyny. Those comments are so out of touch. Agreed. Also, Bernie would have beat Trump in 2016. Okay, that's not bad. How when Harris spoke of her policies to make the economy better for us and to provide more opportunities for people who purchase homes, etc., we lost because people don't want to see a black woman become president. You are not hearing anything. If that is your analysis of the circumstance, if that's your analysis, you're not hearing anything. Television Man told you $50,000 in tax cuts for small businesses is good, and that's solid economic policy. Okay? So you're like, what do you mean? Everybody said that was the best possible thing to say. And I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense. You misspelled white supremacy, but go off. No, Bernie, Democrats lost because the majority of Americans have lost the ability and the interest in telling truth apart from fiction is that simple. It's sad because like there's so much that is somewhat correct in this assessment, but that's just the fucking table, you know? You can't demand to play a different board game when you're playing Monopoly, okay? You can't be like, well, I think we should play as though we're playing Risk. No, man, you're playing Monopoly. Play by the fucking rules, you know? It just doesn't make sense. Like, the reality of the matter is everyone that says racism and misogyny is a factor in this, or white supremacy is a factor in this, yeah, they're not wrong. Of course it is a factor in this. That's America, okay? That's America. But Trump doesn't play by the rules. That's a fantastic point that you just made. Exactly. Trump never, on the other hand, complains, though, in the sense that, like, his complaints are always echoing the resentment that, like, average Americans feel, even if it's on his own personal key issues. He has a perfect way of tying that back to his own audience. Like, I've never seen another motherfucker turn around and be like, I mean, he channels that they're not coming after me. They're coming after you. I'm just in the way. Every single argument that he makes is basically that. I've never seen somebody like Donald Trump, a zesty ass, ace, biromantic, you know, queer visibility candidate, a liberal his whole life, a billionaire real estate developer, shits on a golden toilet, lives in an ivory tower, born with a fucking silver spoon, going to, you know, the Rust Belt and complaining about sissy Graydon Carter and his Vanity Fair parties, and have people go, hell yes, sir, you're right. Everything that he fucking complains about, people think he's like shitting on the liberal elite. Okay? I feel like if Kamala Harris ran and was like consistently talking about how racist and white supremacist America was, that would be objectively depressing for her own turnout. Aren't also rich sitting on a golden toilet in your mansion? What? Yes, dude. I am a real estate developer like Donald Trump, who's worth billions of dollars. Oh my God. House chatter still whining? That's crazy, dude. Holy shit. You're close, though? Yes. I'm close to multiple billions of dollars. You're right. Why are VODs locked under subscription? A lot of haters that are combing through the VODs. It is a way to protect you, and it is a way to protect myself. And if they want to fucking do that, then they have to subscribe. You can literally still find the VODs on YouTube if you would like to. Okay? I'm getting mass targeted by a very hostile community.
Ask you about these results. You've heard some of the reaction throughout the Democratic Party.
My VODs are readily available on YouTube.
How much do you personally blame President?
Won't haters be able to clip from YouTube? Yes, but it's just like they go after the chat and stuff. Because if they can't find something on me, then they'll literally be like, well, the chat said this, you know? Look at what his chat is saying. And on YouTube, it's like more difficult and more of a hassle.
Biden for this loss.
President Biden, when he came into office, said that he would be the most progressive president since FDR. And I think on domestic issues, not foreign policy, on domestic issues, he has kept his word. And
I see on YouTube you blur chat now? No. On YouTube, I don't blur. I don't blur chat for that reason. I blur it because they just YouTube automatically strikes down your video if your chat shows in like the first couple of minutes.
The agenda that he has pushed through has been an extraordinarily strong one. But that agenda...
Why do they call you the Alex Jones of the left? People don't call me that. There's only one group of people that call me that. One very specific community. And that very specific community is consistently wrong on everything. They rode with Biden all the way to the fucking end because that was stupid. Okay? They greatly overemphasized Kamala Harris's chances of winning, and that was also stupid. They're consistently wrong, you know? But you can be wrong yourself and get your information from that community. Or you can be in here and at least, you know, present yourself as a little bit smarter to your friends.
Has got to be placed within the overall context of American society today. And that American society today is one in which tens of millions of working families and elderly people are struggling, while the people on top have never had it so good.
But, Senator, should he have gotten out of the race more quickly, as some are arguing?
I'm not going to. I supported him because I think his agenda was a strong agenda, a working class agenda. I'm not going to look backwards. Kamala ran a strong campaign. She did everything that she could. She decisively won the debate. So to me, it's not just about the campaign. It's about what does the Democratic Party stand for? Do ordinary people say, yeah, that is a party that is fighting for my interest and prepared to take on the big money interest who control the economic and political life of the country? That's to me what the issue is.
Yeah, we're talking a lot about the economics. You've talked about how the Democratic Party is out of touch when it comes to economic issues. Some Democrats are saying it's not just economic issues, it's cultural issues as well. Here's what Democratic strategist James Carville had to say. Take a look.
What killed the Democrats and what killed Biden was a sense of disorder. And part of the sense of disorder was the unfortunate events of what I would refer to as the woke era.
Has the Democratic Party's focus on identity politics gone too far, Senator?
Let me answer it this way. I think if the Democratic Party must continue to stand up against all forms of bigotry. And Democrats should hold their head high in saying, we led the fight for women's rights and to protect the woman's constitutional right for abortion. We led the fight for civil rights, for gay rights. That is something we should be proud of. But it's not either or, Chris, and this is the problem. You can do both. You could say that I'm for raising.
I take it one step further. I say one can only happen with the other. Because if you don't win elections, you can't do fucking legislation that protects marginalized communities. And if you want to win elections, you have to have a populist left economic message. You can be uncompromising in your values while simultaneously asking people, does this put food on your fucking table or not? A question I keep repeating to people that come to me on a daily basis about trans rights is always this. Let's say you forcibly reversed the HRT and gender surgeries of every single trans person in America. Does that immediately or even in the future improve your material conditions? Does that put more food on your table? Does that make your shelter more secure? Does that lower the price of rent? Does that actually help you in any meaningful way? Okay? It's not going to lower the price of eggs. Someone has told you that you should focus on this. And in a sea of hate, you decided, yeah, trans people are weird. I actually think that's the right thing to focus on. Okay? That's it. That's it. And the other side of this, in terms of like constantly doing hyper-specific messaging to different identity groups within the base that we understand it of the Democratic Party is also silly. Because it's not like trans people exist in a separate plane of existence. Like they still have the rent. You think trans people are not going to benefit from universal health care? You think trans people are not going to benefit from lowering the cost of housing? Yeah, of course they're going to benefit. Same with black people. Same with Latino people. This is why left economic populism is very successful. Okay? You fight the battles that you have to fight to defend trans people while you simultaneously offer everyone something that gets them on board. You say Medicare for all means for all. It means for you and it means for trans people too. There's no world where we're like, nah, we're going to gut this. Fuck that.
Damn, this guy's good.